Part 42. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 412. Xiao Yan's hung was pure and clean, and after returning from running all the way, he planned to take a bath and eat before returning the jade pendant to Nai Bei. In fact, he had no intention of coveting the jade pendant at first, just because Nai Bei was in his heart. It's not important. It's not as important as the fact that he had to take a shower and eat, so he wasted a lot of time. Unexpectedly, just because of a thought at that time, he met the lovely person next to him, and he found the love of his life. And received the inheritance of this jade pendant, and since then truly embarked on a completely different path from the past, becoming a cultivator. To this day, the jade pendant has long been recognized by him, and he cannot return it to Lily. He originally thought that since the jade pendant is real and has such spiritual power, then Lily Nai's 16 calamities may also be real. Xiao Yan wondered whether the real Nai Bei was no longer alive. In addition, Lily's temperament changed drastically later. After discussing with Xiaohukan he felt more and more that the original Nai Bei might be dead, and the current Lily might be transformed into a monster. Xiao Yan originally planned to kill Lily and avenge the blood of the original Nai Bei. In this way, he could repay the Nai family's kindness. Not to mention that they did not owe each other, he was also grateful for receiving Lily Nai's jade pendant. But because he had avenged her, he should have a clear conscience. At that time, Xiao Yan did not think about the possibility that Nai Bei died at the hands of Xiaohukan because how could that be possible? But he didn't expect that the Nai family would be destroyed by his enemies later without him taking action. Xiao Yan thought that Nai Bei was dead, so naturally the jade pendant matter was forgotten and became a hidden secret in his heart. But he didn't expect that a few years later, he would see Lily, whom he thought was dead long ago. The matter of the jade pendant was revealed again. Xiao Yan was panicked. When he heard Lily speak, he subconsciously interrupted her. "Now that I'm married to Qin'er, I thought you were dead about the engagement that day, so it doesn't matter. If you want any other compensation, just tell me, as long as I can do it. Go up the mountain and go down the pen. No matter what, why bother bringing up the engagement now? It is absolutely impossible for me to separate from Qin'er." Hearing this, Xiaohukan nervously pulled the hand of the boy next to her. She was probably afraid that Lily was going to compete with her for Xiao Yan, so she used a lot of strength. Lily's keen eyes saw that the back of the boy's hands turned white from being pinched by her, but what was strange was that the boy refused to make a sound. Junior sister Xia became a Taoist couple with the elder of our sect, senior brother Li. 5 years ago. Although Master Ziyang didn't understand the details of the future, seeing Xiao Yan looking like he wanted to clear up the relationship, the corner of his mouth twitched. He twitched and couldn't help but say, "So this fellow Taoist doesn't have to be in such unnecessary trouble." The words unnecessary trouble made the visitor from Xiao's family startled at first, and when he came back to his senses, his face suddenly turned red again. Li Yangzi sat aside but did not speak. But this world was originally created by him, and the characters in the plot will feel suppressed when they see him. The feeling of not daring to resist and instinctive respect arises from the heart. When seeing him, the characters in the plot will have a sense of awe for him. Even some people did not know this elder of Ziyang's sect before, but now they see the look on his face. The indifferent Li Yangzi, although he just sat there quietly and deserted, his aura made it impossible to ignore him. Instead, he stood up and pointed at Lily. Xiao Yan, who was blushing now, seemed to be showing his teeth and claws. Third Uncle Xiaohe gritted his teeth and glanced at Xiao Yan. He reluctantly said, "Congratulations to Miss Nai and Elder Li for their happy marriage. Since this matter has passed, why bother bringing it up again?" Xiao Yan's face turned green and white. He was not a fool. He had even been outstandingly beautiful since he was a child. Now, no matter how stupid he was, he realized that he had just made a joke. For a moment, he wished he could find a crack in the ground and crawl under it, and then Lily would poof a burst of laughter. I didn't care about the engagement in the past. It was just Miss Ziyaha who coaxed me out. At that time, I just thought that the girl was sincerely making friends with me. When the government was anxious to find the lost jade pendant for me, it turned out that my grandma who was following me grandma just discovered that you two have been together for a long time, and the jade pendant was also picked up by you, Master Xiao, and you took it for yourself. As soon as these words were spoken, it was like a stone stirring up 1,000 waves. Everyone in the Ziyaha family couldn't help it and stood up. The third uncle Ziyaha said even more excitedly, "You're talking nonsense." Lily's words actually imply that Xiaohukan and Xiao Yan secretly planned to get her jade pendant, so they coaxed her to leave home, broke her 16-year-old catastrophe, and took the opportunity to kill her. Generally, the Ziyaha family is also a well-known reclusive family in the world of cultivation. If Lily's accusation is spread, how will the Ziyaha family gain a foothold in the world of cultivation in the future? Therefore, even though he was a little wary of Li Yangzi next to Lily, third uncle Ziyaha gritted his teeth and still reprimanded. "That's nonsense. Whether it is true or not, the two parties involved know best that you two had an affair in the hot spring that day and took away my jade pendant. That's why I hated you two to the core and drove you two out of Nai's house," Lily added to the plot. When Lily Nai said her grievances that she had no place to complain about, she felt relaxed for a while, as if she had breathed out a big sigh of relief. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. This should be Lily Nai herself. The feelings I felt when the grievances I had held in my heart were now exposed to the world. I just couldn't bear to expose the two of you, so I just kicked you out of the house. Unexpectedly, you repaid me with kindness, thinking that my temperament changed drastically, and later you even wanted to kill someone to silence me. When Xiaohukan heard these words, her little face turned red with anxiety. She raised her hand and swore, "I, Xiaohukan swear that I can never be so vicious. I admit that I first met her at the Huishan hot spring. Brother Yan, but I didn't conspire with him, nor did I collude with him, and at that time. You don't have to quibble. A man and a woman meet in the middle of the night in a deserted place, hugging each other without even a single piece of clothing. Who would believe that you two are not having a tryst? Lily herself saw such a scene that day, and now it was natural to say it with confidence. When Xiaohukan heard this, her face turned blue and white, and suddenly she cried loudly, threw away the boy she was holding, and threw herself into Xiao Yan next to her. In arms. Xiao Yan reached out and patted her back. He wanted to comfort his beloved wife, but he didn't expect that the secret he had kept in his heart for many years would be seen by others. At this moment, he was both scared and a little panicked. The jade pendant was originally in his heart. Unexpectedly, a secret of his was exposed at this time a few years later, and in such an unbearable way. Today, he has an extraordinary status in the world of cultivation, and he has made a name for himself with his hard work over the years. In the future, he is no longer the young man who was just willing to stay in the Nai family and become a rich man. He cannot afford to lose his reputation. Uncle San is right, you are talking nonsense. According to what you said about the 16th tribulation, since you left the house and lost the jade token, you should have died at the age of 16. You are still alive now, which proves the so-called 16 calamities and life-saving jade tokens are nonsense. You clearly have a grudge against me and China's marriage and deliberately slandered others at this point. Xiao Yan could only use Lily's 16 calamities to come forward. As an excuse, as soon as he finished speaking, Lily threw herself into Li Yangzi's arms. Li Yangzi easily hugged her around the waist. Lily struggled twice but failed to let go. She gritted her teeth and glanced at him before turning to face Xiao. Yangziao. I was indeed almost killed by you that day, but who told me that I should not die? I met my husband and saved my life, so that I can express my grievances today. What Lily said was not a lie. Everyone in the Xiahe family looked pale now. Uncle Xiahe moved his lips and said stiffly. Actually, the theory of calamity cannot be fully believed. Maybe it is just random talk by quacks and magicians. How can it be taken as true? Brother Xiahe, what you said is wrong. After listening for a long time, the head of the Xiang sect showed a look of contempt on his face, and said seriously, that day, I changed junior sister Nai's fate against the will of heaven, and set up a disaster formation for the Nai mansion, and the person who gave her the life-saving jade pendant is someone from my Xiang section. With the words of Genren Xiang, everyone in the Xiahe family was dumbfounded. The words of the head of the Xiang sect were better than what everyone said. The third uncle Xiahe's face was extremely ugly. He was trembling all over and his cheeks couldn't help but twitch. He glanced hatefully at Xiaohukan who looked worried, aggrieved, and inexplicable, and took a deep breath. To this day, the Xiahe family has definitely lost face and gained such a bad name. In the future, the Xiahe family will only be notorious in the world of cultivation. All of this was caused by two juniors. In this case, Master Xiang's words cannot be false, but the matter of borrowing the sword is of great importance, so why not deal with the blood killing first, and then talk about other things? What do you think of Master Xiang? Uncle Xiahe laughed twice, thinking in his heart they were a little depressed. They came up the mountain just to borrow the Xiang sword, the Xiang sword sect's treasure. Xiao Yan was very talented in swordsmanship, but he had always been short of a good weapon. Originally, the Xiahe family firstly, he wanted to form an alliance with the Xiang sword section. Secondly, he also hoped to borrow the Xiang sword sect's sect-suppressing treasure for Xiao Yan to use. As long as Xiao Yan relied on the power of the divine sword, he could kill all the people. Xiao Yan's reputation is resounding throughout the land, and he only hopes that everyone will be a little more tolerant of his past affairs for the sake of saving the world of cultivation. The Xiang sect is the treasure of our section. Fellow deists. Xiao's character and strength still need to be tempered. In my opinion, the matter of borrowing the sword should be slowed down for the time being. The master of the Xiang sect can naturally see the heart of third uncle Xiaohu. It was a good idea. He wanted to use the sword of the Xiang sect to achieve a good reputation for the Xiahe family. He also hoped that in the future, Xiao Yan, with the reputation of saving the entire world of cultivation, could cleanse himself of his past ungratefulness and abandon his benefactor's daughter. It's just a stain on taking away Lily Nai's jade medal. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 413. Master, it's better to think about it again. To be honest with what Master said, this child Xiao Yan was born with an inexplicable aura. I remember that I was lucky enough to see Xiang's sword at the sword appreciation meeting 20 years ago. This child has the spiritual energy is exactly the same as the sword energy in the Xiang sword. When third uncle Xiahe arrived, he earnestly advised, the purple sun sword has been placed in the Gazong for nearly 100 years and no one can pick it up, just because no one can use it. Now that Dao Xiaomo is on the rise, I only hope that the real person, for the sake of the common people in the world, will borrow the sword and use it, and then return to Zhao after the deed is completed. If I, Xiaohu, have any false knowledge, I will be struck by lightning. It will not be good. Die. If it hadn't been revealed that Xiao Yan coveted the lily jade pendant, the head of the Xiang sect might have agreed after hearing that Xiao Yan had the same spiritual energy as the Xiang sword and could use the Xiang sword. People even want to covet the life-saving things of the Savior's daughter. What a precious thing the Xiang sword is. It is a portable sword left by the founder of the Xiang sect thousands of years ago. It can be said to be the most precious treasure passed down by the Xiang sect for thousands of years. Even if it is nothing, people can use it, but this Xiang sword alone can protect the Xiang sect from falling for 1,000 years. Of course, the leader of the Xiang sect would not dare to lend such a precious thing to a villain like Xiao Yan. Seeing that everyone in the Xiang sect was silent and speechless, Uncle Xiaohe showed a smile that was uglier than crying. He was a little unwilling and couldn't help but move his lips. Can it be that all the people in the world can't stand up to this small personal grudge? It's just a love affair between a few children, but it is as important as the life and death of the cultivation world. It's not just a love affair between children, Lily sighed, thinking about what happened after she entered the plot. Thinking of the dozens of lives lost in the Nye mansion. That day you said you wanted to avenge me, so you rushed into the Nye mansion and shouted to kill me, and put the servants in the Nye mansion to sleep, so that no one in the Xia mansion escaped in the end, and dozens of lives were lost. If he died on the spot, how would this debt be calculated? That was a bloodbath. Why didn't Miss Nye know the truth? Uncle Xiaohe hated Lily now. Hearing that she wanted to blame the lives of dozens of members of the Nye family on him, he suddenly became anxious. We have not killed anyone in the Nye family. Even the girl is still alive and well. Why do you want to say such things to ruin the reputation of my Xiaohe family? The person was not killed by your own hands, but he died because of you. You didn't know how to make the Nye family's servants sleep when you came, so that they did not escape when the bloody killing came. If they had been awake that day, they could have escaped. Even if there is no way to escape, but at least there is still a chance, but you used a method first to let them die in their sleep. What's more, my Nye family is just an ordinary secular person. I have no involvement in the affairs of the world of cultivation, nor do I have any. Which enemy have you offended? Why would you kill us for no reason? It's all because of you, the disaster stars, who brought the disaster here. Lily looked cold. Uncle Xiaohe couldn't open his mouth after saying a few words. He moved his lips and finally snorted with a gloomy face. Even if we were at fault for what happened that day, if it happens here, I will naturally give the girl an explanation. It's just a matter of borrowing the sword. I hope the real person will think about it again. Don't think about it. I have discussed this matter with all the brothers. This is a very important treasure of our section. It cannot be borrowed. This is our sect's rule. Brother Xiaohe, please forgive me. Master Xiang waved his hand. Although third Uncle Xiaohe had already expected this was the result, but now that I actually heard Master Xiang's rejection, I still felt uncontrollably disappointed. He brought the Xiaohe family here today with full expectations, thinking that this time the Xiaohe family was born, it would be a big hit. The Xiaohe family will definitely rise in this generation. Everything was consistent with the prophecy, but I didn't expect that such a change would happen now. Nothing was done when I came today. On the contrary, the Xiaohe family's reputation was completely ruined. Xiaohe's third uncle felt unwilling and a little resentful. He wondered if the Xiang sword sect deliberately wanted to tarnish the reputation of the Xiaohe family so casually. He found a mortal woman and made up some kind of 16-year-old pact, and some kind of life-saving jade tablet that made the Xiaohe family fall into a trap. After all, the Xiang sword sect has a great reputation and is as famous as Mount Tai and Baidu in the world of immortality. The birth of the Ho family will definitely harm their interests. Thinking of this, Uncle Xiaohe couldn't help but ask again. I wonder which high-powered member of your sect was responsible for setting up the formation for Miss Nye that day. He was very unwilling to end today's matter. Now he suspected that the Xiang sword sect had harmed others. Naturally, his tone was a bit unkind at this time. Xiaohe the family is famous for divination, but they have not been able to predict the future and future events. Now it sounds reasonable at first, but now I feel full of doubts in my heart, and I hope Master Xiang can give me some advice. It's endless. Li Yangzi suddenly sat up straight with some impatience. Even though in this life's plot, Nai Bei he had indeed been engaged to Xiao Yan, and the person who had the engagement was not Lily, but when he heard it, he still feeling a little unhappy, he waved to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's clothes were suddenly held up by something at the collar. The thing shook left and right twice, as if it was about to break open the clothes and come out. When everyone was startled by this turn of events, there was a soft pop, and a piece of crystal clear green jade pendant about the size of a baby's palm suddenly flew out from Xiao Yan's broken collar and flew towards Li Yangzi. The jade pendant had a faint golden light all over its body. When Xiao Yan saw this scene, he subconsciously reached out to cover his collar. When he came to his senses, he was anxious to reach out to grab his jade pendant, but before he could reach out, after catching it, the jade pendant disappeared like lightning and quickly fell into Li Yangzi's hand. "Give me back the jade pendant." Seeing such a scene, Xiao Yan felt anxious. When he was shocked, he stood up and wanted to rush towards Li Yangzi. This jade pendant was not just for him. It's just a jade pendant. In addition to a magical aura, it also has a mysterious technique. Moreover, the aura on the jade pendant is very special. What Uncle Xiaohe just said is the same as the Xiang sword sex sword suppression. The aura of Bao Tong was transmitted from the jade pendant. Xiao Yan even felt that if he owned this jade pendant for a while longer, he would be unrivaled in the world and become the common master of mankind. "Your jade pendant." Li Yangzi raised his eyebrows and glanced at him gently. The jade pendant that had just arrived in his hand started to fly. He had already recognized the jade pendant of its owner, but now it was as obedient as finding it in front of Li Yangzi. Like a child who has lost his parents, he is at the mercy of his parents. The jade pendant has the word Lily carved on it. Everyone present is an immortal cultivator, and their eyes are straight, so they can naturally see it clearly. Lily previously told that Xiaohukani coaxed Nai Bei to go out, and then Lily's jade pendant disappeared, and finally told that Xiaohukani had a tryst with Xiao Yan and claimed the life-saving jade tablet that originally belonged to Nai Bei. When Xiaohukani was a child, Uncle Ho still refused to believe it, but now he saw with his own eyes that the jade pendant was summoned from Xiao Yan's body, and at this time, the jade pendant was engraved with the word Lily, which was irrefutable proof and could no longer be denied. At that moment, everyone in the Xiaohe family looked ashen. Uncle Xiaohe almost slapped Xiaohekaner to death on the spot. He turned around and looked at Xiaohekaner coldly with a livid face. At a glance, Xiaohukanar's face showed a look of guilt, fear, and grievance. After being married for several years, she naturally knew that Xiao Yan had such a jade plaque. After all, Xiao Yan was sincere to her and did not hide the ins and outs of getting this jade plaque from her. Xiaohukaner sometimes felt guilty, but now that things have come to this, even the entire Nai family has been wiped out. What can she do if she still feels guilty? What's more, everyone had said that Nai Bei would not live past the age of 16. After all, the third uncle of his clan had approved Nai Bei's fate at that time, proving that she would die young. So after all these years, Xiaoho Qiner slowly hid this matter in her heart, and it became a shared secret between her and her husband. After all, the identification of the jade plaque was indeed related to her. When she went to the hot springs, she accidentally met Xiao Yan and bit his lip. Finally, his blood dripped and she identified the jade plaque. Lord, no one wants to seize Lily Nai's things. Xiaohukani thought that she was open-minded and worthy of heaven and earth, but when she saw everyone's expressions, she had a feeling that she couldn't explain. She said that she didn't mean to plot Lily Nai's jade pendant, but thinking about what she had done, she didn't even believe the series of coincidences. Xiaohe, I really didn't mean it. You have to believe me. Now, even if no one in the world believes in herself, Xiaohukani only hopes that Lily can say something good for her. I really regard you as a sister. You saved me, provided me with food and drink, and even let me live in the Nai family. How could I harm you? We are good sisters. As Xiaohukani spoke, she couldn't help crying. She also felt very wronged in her heart. She had never been so wronged in her life, as if others had already determined that she was a bad person. Such thoughts made her cry like broken beads, they kept rolling down her cheeks. I really wanted to take you out to relax that day, but I didn't expect that the jade sign fell off. I really didn't mean it. I just wanted you to go out and have fun and see the world. I didn't expect that the jade sign would fall off. The card will be picked up by Brother Yan, and the final recognition of the owner was not intentional. It is all my fault, please forgive me, can you believe me? There was only one person in the hall, Xiahachiner, whose cries echoed back and forth. She kept begging and asking Lily to forgive her. The Xiaha family members looked blank. By now, the evidence had appeared. No matter how much you argue, you are just asking for humiliation. Uncle Xiaha seemed to have aged more than 10 years for a moment. The Xiaha family was born with great ambitions, but ended up with such a discredited ending. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. P.S. Fourth update. This story will be finished with the first update at 2 o'clock at noon tomorrow. The fourth update has arrived on time. The author's integrity has been preserved. 4. Jwinok, Dear Heshi Baigia Update. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 414. A casual piece, something to give to my wife to protect her life and calm her nerves. The jade pendant fell back into Li Yangzi's hand again, with a slightly impatient smile on the corner of his mouth, and he grasped it heavily, and the jade pendant between his palms let out a whine. It has been worn by others, so it is naturally not worthy for her to use it again. A beam of golden light burst out from his palm, and Xiao Yan, who was originally standing, suddenly groaned, and his chest seemed to be hit by a heavy hammer. In the middle, he spurted out a large mouthful of blood with a wow sound, and his face instantly became sluggish. When Li Yangzi opened his palm again, his palm was white and slender, and there was no trace of the jade pendant. It turned into spiritual power and spread out. The power is somewhat similar to the Xiang sword sex suppressing treasure. For some reason, the leader of the Xiang sect subconsciously glanced at Li Yangzi with wide eyes. Xiao Yan seemed to have been severely injured at this moment. Xiahachiner screamed in surprise. Xiao Yan began to collapse on her softly. Everyone in the Xiaha family felt angry and dared not speak out at this moment. The appearance of the jade pendant confirmed that Xiao Yan and Xiahukani were indeed suspected of defrauding Lily jade pendant. The most important thing is that the thing Li Yangzi said as a gift to his wife now seemed to be Xiao Yan and Xiahukani. It was like someone shamelessly stole someone else's token of love, which undoubtedly made the Xiaha family feel even more shameless. When it was quiet at this time, suddenly there was a muffled sound from outside. Suddenly, there was a shock in the hall, and tables, chairs, and other objects around began to tilt and shake. The leader of the Xiang sect shouted to calm everyone down. A disciple outside shouted anxiously, "Master, someone broke in," then, several times, screams sounded one after another. Light smoke began to rise from the ground inside the hall. The soles of everyone's feet felt inexplicably hot, and the hot heat quickly began to spread. The robes under everyone's feet began to catch fire, and even some of the spirit wood tables and chairs in the main hall began to emit smoke. Cigarette. What's going on? The face of the leader of the Xiang sect changed drastically, and he subconsciously started to fly with luck. Everyone began to imitate him and fly into the air. Uncle Xiaha, who had looked ugly just now, suddenly shouted. The blood killer is here. Before killing people, people who kill people like to use strange spells like this to burn their sex land and ordinary people to death together. If Yu Jian wants to fly into the air when someone is in panic, then there must be people in a bloody ambush in the air who will kill them all. The Xiaha family had dealt with the blood killers several times. In addition, Xiaoho's third uncle had encountered these blood killers several times with Xiahou Qiner and Xiao Yan, and was almost killed by them several times. Death is very familiar with their methods. Naturally, he immediately shouted out, "There are spies in the Xiang sect who are going to kill each other with blood." That's nonsense. When the leader of the Xiang sect heard this, he almost couldn't help but fall out. Although the Xiang sect has a good reputation in the world of cultivation, it has always been more important to recruit disciples than to have many disciples. It is precisely because of this that every member of the Xiang sect, the origins of the disciples are clear, their wealth is innocent, and they are all people with spiritual roots. Although their number is not as high as that of some sections, but the overall strength is strong, and the people in Xiang sect originally protect their shortcomings. Hearing Uncle Xiahe say that there was a spy in the Xiang sect, everyone immediately glared at the Xiahe family members. If you are not a spy, and your sect is protected by the sect's formation, how can the blood-killing people get in? Xiahe Qin'er gritted her teeth. She herself was not strong. Most of the Xiahe family having entered Taoism through medicine or divination, the overall strength is not profound. In addition, she was holding a boy in her arms at the moment, which naturally made it even more difficult. As for Xiao Yan next to him, blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. The moment Li Yangzi crushed the jade plaque, Xiao Yan's whole aura suddenly slumped, as if he had been seriously injured. He also needed Xia Hukani'ar to hold her back. She was already barely able to fly. If Uncle Xiahe hadn't been helping her, she would have been unable to hold on and fell. At this moment, a thin fire began to light up in the hall, and the fire tended to gradually intensify. The red flames wrapped around the pillars as if stained with blood and began to climb up. Seeing the hall that has been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, the people in the Xiang sect were so angry that they started to use spells to divert water to pour water on them. But at this moment, there were also flames outside, and the fire was getting bigger and bigger. These fires were caused by spells. It contains a large amount of fire spiritual energy, which cannot be quenched by ordinary water. When everyone was about to fly up into the air, the roof of the hall suddenly seemed to be cut open, and a burst of indistinguishable laughter from men and women suddenly came from mid-air. "Ha ha ha, Xiang sect finally came in. Well done, Lanja." When Xiang Genren heard this, everyone subconsciously looked up at the sky. The boy who was originally held in Xia Hukani'ar's arms suddenly rushed towards Lily like lightning, holding a string of long green flowers in his hand. Needle, cold light flashes. Without thinking, Lily kicked a burning table under her feet and hit him. When the flames fell on Lily's dress, a faint golden light appeared on her body, and the flames went out. The boy bumped into the table, grunted, quickly flew into the air, and stood with a tall man wearing a wolf head mask who appeared out of nowhere, and then smiled at Xia Hukani'ar. "Got up." "Blood kill?" Uncle Xiahe was startled. People wearing wolf head masks appeared one after another behind the two people, and they all looked down and laughed. The Xiang sect has dominated the world of cultivation for too long. As long as we get rid of the Xiang sect today and win the Purple Sun Sword, everything will be smooth sailing from now on. The leader's voice seemed to be muffled because of his mask. Lily had already had a bad premonition when she saw the boy before. Now she saw that the boy failed to plot against her and stood on the side of the so-called bloody murder. She snorted coldly and pointed at Xia Hukan. The sun said loudly, "Xiahe Qin'er, what do you mean? You failed to kill me a few years ago, and now you have brought a blood killer to plot against me? Your Xiahe family has already joined the blood killer, and deliberately brought people into the Xiang section. Are you pretending to be cooperating with us, but on the other hand you are cooperating with us?" Hearing this, everyone in the Xiahe family was shocked, and their faces were all frightened and ugly. Uncle Xiaoho instinctively wanted to refute, but it was an indisputable fact that the boy was brought in by them. He glanced at Xiaoho Qin'er, his face was ashen and speechless. The burly man wearing a wolf head mask, the big man smiled. "Jaja, thanks to Lanja coming in to help, otherwise the Xiang sect's formation would be really difficult to break." This is what happened. I want the Xiahe family to give me a satisfactory answer. The head of the Xiang sect looked at the Xiahe family coldly and said bitterly, close the formation first. Uncle Xiaoho closed his eyes, with a wry smile on his lips. At this time, I couldn't explain why I had jumped into the Yellow River. The people from the Xiang sect had quickly united together. Several elders formed a small group. The bloody killing, which had always been invincible, was like meeting an opponent for the first time. The two sides were in a stalemate. The Xiang sect has closed the sect protecting formation, and the Xiahe family cannot escape even if they want to take advantage of this opportunity. If he stayed and faced the bloodshed, he would die. If he sided with the Xiang sect, he might get another chance to explain himself. Thinking of this, Uncle Xiaoho decided to side with the Xiang sect without hesitation. A group of elders with high magic power and good cooperation. Naturally, it is not easy for others to take advantage of the loopholes, but there are many bloodthirsty evildoers. Coupled with the fact that he killed everyone and practiced some evil skills, all of them were very powerful, and the people in the Xiang sect were plotted before. Many disciples have been killed and injured now, especially some who suddenly experienced evil fire. Many of the panicked disciples were hunted down by the ambushed demon cultivators. Master, now that we have reached this point, why not ask Master to bring out the purple sun sword? Give it to Xiao Yan and let him drive away these demon cultivators first. At this moment, third Uncle Xiahe still wanted to take away the merit. Li Yangzi, who was standing next to Lily, suddenly pushed Lily gently, and a gentle force sent her towards Xiang Jinren. Give her the Xiang sword. There was something undeniably strong in his voice. The leader of the Xiang sect glanced at Li Yangzi subconsciously. He suddenly gritted his teeth and recited a spell in his mouth. A small, crystal-clear sword slowly rose from his head. Each generation of head of the Xiang sword sect is a sword-guarding sword cauldron. The head keeps the sect suppressing treasure in his body and passes it on from generation to generation. At this moment, the Xiang sword is born, and a dazzling light quickly spreads from the head of the Xiang section come. The eyes exposed under the wolf-headed mask of the blood-killing leader suddenly showed a hint of ecstasy, and he raised his arms and shouted. Snatch the purple sun sword. Uncle Xiahe glared at Lily. He didn't dare to go to Li Yangzi to trouble him, because he was instinctively afraid of Li Yangzi, but he was a little disapproving of Lily in his heart. After all, even if Lily was saved by Li Yangzi and worshipped under the Xiang sect that day, how can a mortal who has never practiced Taoism achieve anything in a few years, even if he has outstanding natural beauty? What's more, where is the purple sun sword suitable for playing with a woman who has just entered the world of immortality for a few days? Xiang sect is too childish. Even if it is given to Lily, it is not willing to save the common people for Xiao Yan. The small sword sprang out from the head of the Xiang sect master, and flew around the sky several times, making a clear sound. Finally, it rushed towards Lily, getting bigger and bigger, but it was light and airy in hand. As soon as Lily got the sword with it in hand, it felt as if he had found something that should have belonged to him. A figure wearing a wolf mask rushed towards him. The long sword in Lily's hand blocked it, and the light on the sword seemed to be specially designed to restrain this evil cultivator. The figure quickly retreated. What he practiced in Xiang sect was the art of sword cultivation. He was very good at using this sword. Lily recited the sword controlling technique without thinking, and the long sword began to fly in the air, picking up a bunch of swords every time it passed. Blood flower, this formula is the sword control method taught to her by Li Yangzi. The effect is not so obvious on weekdays, but now it has a miraculous effect. Although most of the mana in the body has been emptied by using this move, it turns out that the sky above Xiang sword sect there were about a dozen people in wolf fang masks who were stepping on the flying swords. At this moment, 3 of them were directly cut in half. Their blood was scattered all over the ground and they died immediately. Impossible, Xiaohukan shouted subconsciously when she saw such a scene. In 5 years, Xiao Yan was known as the #1 person of the new generation in the world of cultivation. Now he has reached the level of half-step to the golden elixir. Nai Bei he was just an ordinary mortal at the beginning, but now his strength has reached the level of golden elixir. Not only Xiao Hukan Er, but also Xiao Yan widened his eyes and coughed several times. There are not many people in the blood-killing team, only about a dozen people. This time, in order to destroy the Xiang sect and seize the treasure of the Zone, they should be dispatched collectively. This group of people has killed countless people in the past few years, but they just come and go without a trace. With high magic power and strong, no one has ever seen their true colors, so they haven't been caught for years. Lily killed such a few people with one sword attack today. Even if she didn't kill many people, she relied on the power of the Xiang sword, but it was still enough for her to become famous all over the world. Once a few people were killed, it was obvious that the massacre was in chaos. The people of Xiang sect became energetic and began to counter-attack with the sect leader as the leader. For a while, flying swords circled back and forth above Xiang sect. Lily, who had been drained of her mana, could hardly hold the purple sun sword that had flown back in her hand, and its luster was obviously much dimmer than before. When the blood-killing leader was about to rush towards Lily under the cover of his men, Lily could no longer muster the magic power to maintain her body flying in the air. She fell softly, and finally fell into the already waiting place. In the arms of Li Yangzi on the side. Hand over the purple sun sword, the somewhat angry and unwilling leader no longer cared about pretending, and held a seal in his hand, even though he was still instinctively afraid of Li Yangzi. But I don't know if the temptation of Xiang's sword was too great, but he still blasted towards Lily. Li Yangzi hugged Lily and turned around, and the seal of the blood-killing leader naturally fell on Li Yangzi's back. As if a slow movie was playing, the surroundings shook twice like water ripples, and Li Yangzi's clothes and hair were blown by the wind. He frowned and reached out to touch Lily, and was relieved when he found that she was not injured. He didn't notice the seal that was originally placed on his back vest, but Lily grabbed his clothes nervously and subconsciously shouted, "Be careful." Somehow, Lily seemed to have an inexplicable mood at this moment. She remembered the scene in the plot of Dahai, when Li Yangzi disappeared in front of her because he saved her, and Lily suddenly felt a little panicked. The mana in her body had been drained, but now she seemed to have strength coming from nowhere. His hands were tightly grasped on Li Yangzi's arm. Li Yangzi's eyes flashed. He was such a sharp-eyed and intelligent person. He naturally saw the tension and worry in Lily's eyes. Like Lily, he also thought of the plot of Dahai. In order to help that time, Lily, who unexpectedly did not receive the plot, transformed into Li Yangzi for the first time and entered the mission world, he said. When he wanted to escape from the mission world, Li Yangzi used a method to save Lily. The look in Lily's eyes was also the same as now. Exactly the same. Li Yangzi thought about it, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and his eyelids drooped to block the light in the corners of his eyes. Originally, the mark placed on his back vest by the leader of the Wolf Fang did not cause any harm to him, but he seemed to have been extremely hurt. Like a big blow, his body shook heavily twice, he groaned, and a trace of blood slowly emerged from the corner of his mouth. In the plot, most people behave like this after being injured. Li Yangzi looked like those people in his memory when they were injured. The blood dripped down his chin and onto the clothes on Lily's chest. At this moment, in Lily's eyes, he looked like, Li Yangzi's face instantly turned a little pale, and the bright red color felt particularly dazzling to her. There seemed to be a sudden pause in her mind, and an inexplicable anger welled up in her heart. Without thinking, Lily reached out and hooked Li Yangzi's neck. Her body was close to him, and her upper body was lying on Li Yangzi's shoulder. Looking at the burly man wearing the wolf head mask had not yet retracted his gesture. She angrily thrust the sword in her hand at the man. "How dare you hit him?" A dazzling light burst out from the Xiang sword, and the long sword in Lily's hand struck randomly. The leader paused for a moment, and was unable to dodge a blow. He was injured by the sword energy. When he reacted and quickly backed away, he was hit by the Xiang sword again. People from the sect gathered around. Once the leader was caught, the rest of the blood-killing people were surrounded by the angry Xiang sword. Section 1 died and a few were injured. The rest were tied up with immortal locks by the Xiang sect's people. Even if he caught everyone and killed everyone, Xiang sect suffered serious losses this time. Lily adjusted her breath a little and was held in Li Yangzi's arms. Seeing that his face was still a little pale, she couldn't bear to struggle. The words on the corners of his mouth, the already somewhat dried up blush was very dazzling, and it was particularly conspicuous on his frosty face. Lily used her sleeve to wipe away the blood carefully for him. She didn't notice that the trace of red blood quickly disappeared after being wiped off by her sleeve. She just held Li Yangzi's face, pursed her lips, and whispered softly. "Ask. Does it still hurt?" In her mind, Li Yangzi, who had always seemed to be all-powerful, would be beaten by others. Lily found it difficult to accept it, and she felt that Li Yangzi no longer had the same aloof and inviolable feeling as before. Li Yangzi, who had just been beaten, frowned, and his face became increasingly pale. But he shook his head. This scene made Lily even more angry. She struggled to stand up, but Li Yangzi hugged her tightly and coughed twice. Lily stretched out her hand to help him smooth her chest, and the sin on her lower head was lifted. The fire was slowly extinguished with the capture of Shueshazhong, although the Xiang sect was completely desolate. But there is a place to stay. People from Xiaohe's family, come here. While everyone was silently cleaning up the mess, Lily Lenghush's shout made many people startled. The Xiaohe family were standing in the field awkwardly. When they heard Lily's shout, Xiaohe's third uncle smiled bitterly. He gritted his teeth and led a group of people towards Lily. "What happened today? It is true that we did something wrong, but we can explain. You brought this person in, destroyed the Xiang sect's formation, and brought in the blood-killing demon cultivator. What can Mr. Xiaohe say?" Lily interrupted Uncle Xiaohe's words in a cold voice. The scene here aroused the attention of everyone in Xiang section. A group of people also gathered around. When they heard Lily's words, everyone was so angry that they gritted their teeth. The Xiaohe family's plans are not cunning. Their intentions are to be punished. No, it's not. Uncle Xiaohe had big beads of sweat on his forehead at this moment. He originally thought that whether he asked Xiang sword sect to cooperate or borrow a sword, he would be sure of success, but now I feel so regretful that my intestines are turning green. Not only has this profession failed to achieve any of its original goals, but now I have been accused of colluding with demon cultivators. Once this reputation is confirmed, I feel guilty. In the future, the Xiaohe family may face the wrath of the entire world of cultivating immortals. After all, some secluded families are inseparable from each other. They have known each other for many years, and their relationship is very deep. He killed too many people at that time and incurred many blood debts, so he was called the Blood Killer. If the Xiaohe family cannot explain clearly today, the entire family will be implicated and even be obliterated by others. At this time, Uncle Xiaohe felt cruel, glanced at Xiaohe Qin'er, and said sternly, "Naijian, at this moment, are you still telling the truth?" Xiaohe Qin'er had an innocent and confused look on her face. She glanced at Uncle Xiaohe subconsciously, shook her head, and said in confusion, "Uncle, third uncle, Qin'er doesn't understand what you are talking about. The boy was rescued by you. If you explain this matter clearly in front of all the immortals, if you explain it clearly, you may still have a way to survive today. If you can't explain it clearly, I will beat you to death for my elder brother. Just pretend that he never gave birth to a daughter like you." Seeing that Uncle Xiaohe was still screaming for Xiaohe Qin'er to explain. Although the tone was harsh, so many people in the Xiang sect died and the losses were so serious that even Li Yangzi was injured. This explanation can be enough. In the past, Lily was angry in her heart. Li Yangzi's injury made her feel inexplicably uncomfortable. Seeing that the third uncle of the Xiaohe family was still trying to shirk responsibility, she couldn't help but sneered. What an explanation! A single explanation can lead to the death and injury of so many people in our Xiang section. Whether you did it intentionally or not today, it is an indisputable fact that you led the bloody massacre into the Xiang section. Hearing this, Xiaohukan seemed to have reacted. Her eye circles suddenly turned red, and she waved her hands hurriedly. No, no, I picked that child up on the road. Seeing how pitiful he was without food or water, and having nowhere to go, I asked him to follow me to Xiang section. A stranger whom she didn't know on the road dared to be brought into the Xiang sect at will. Hearing her words, everyone in the Xiang sect was so angry that their eyes were red, especially when they saw this stupid woman sobbing and crying. The way she looked when she was in the rain, not only did she have no pity for her, but everyone wanted to slap her. What kind of place is Xiang sect? You bring a stranger into our section, Miss Xiaohe, you have to make up a decent lie. At this time, whether it was public or private, Lily was not interested in it. She wasn't going to let Xiaohukan get away with it so easily. She wanted to make it difficult for Xiaohukan to turn around in her life and make her notorious forever. Really, what I said is true, don't you believe me, Xiaohe? Xiaohukan cried and shook her head, with tears flying everywhere in the corners of her eyes. She said a few words, and saw the expressions of people around her. She looked cold and indifferent, and suddenly she opened her mouth and cried loudly, "It's true. Xiaohe, you were also a kind person back then. Your father saved Brother Yan, and you also saved Wu. I am helpless. Why wouldn't you save a child if you see him without food or water? Why have you become so indifferent now? You are almost not like the Lily I knew back then." There was an accusation in her tone, and Lily couldn't help but reach out and pull Li Yangzi's arm away from her waist. This time it went very smoothly. She stood up, grabbed Xiaohukan collar without thinking, and slapped her face twice. There were two chest sounds of pap. Xiaohukan had probably never received such treatment since she was a child. She was stunned for a moment. She didn't even react. The stupid Renbei dragged her to the ground. Indifference. The Nai you knew almost died early because of you, and now you still dare to talk to me about kindness. If I had known that so many things would happen after saving you. My father should not have saved a white-eyed wolf like Xiao Yan, I shouldn't have saved you either. Lily grabbed her hair and lifted her face up, forcing her to look at the broken tiles in front of her. She pointed at the human figures that were burned to ashes on the ground, but the corpses of Xiang sect disciples had not been scattered, and said, "Do you see, this is your kindness. Your kindness has killed so many people in the Xiang section. Your kindness will make the Xiaohe family become like this. Your kindness will kill people." He is not afraid of meeting opponents who are like gods, but he is afraid of meeting teammates who are like pigs like Xiaohukan. Her behavior will always bring disaster to the people around her, even if her intentions are good at the beginning, just like when she wanted to take Lily Nai out to relax. However, Nai Bei accidentally lost the jade pendant, and finally Xiao Yan absorbed the jade pendant's aura. Until this time, she kindly saved the orphan, but did not consider the consequences, and led the disaster to the Xiang sword section. To put it nicely, Xiaohukan is a cute little girl who is born confused and keeps getting into trouble and needs someone to clean up the mess for her. To put it worse, he is a heartless idiot. You idiot! The bastard, the Nai family died because of you. So many people from the Xiang sword sect have died, and this debt needs to be repaid with the blood of the Xiaohe family. Lily sneered twice and threw Xiaohukan, who was greatly irritated at the moment, to the ground. No one spoke around him. Uncle Xiaoho also felt that his throat was dry and dared not make a sound. Xiao Yan coughed twice, and his mouth he spat out another mouthful of blood. Ever since he lost the jade pendant, he felt as if the magic power in his body had stagnated. He no longer had the pleasure he had when using magic power before. It was as if he had lost something he had relied on for a long time. Instinctively I feel flustered and confused at this time. I didn't mean it, I didn't, Weavio, brother Yan, third uncle, please tell me. Xiaohukanir came back to her senses after a long time, and suddenly opened her mouth to cry wow wow, but wherever she looked, Uncle Xiaohu snorted and turned his face away. Everyone in the Xiang sword sect looking at her angrily, Xiao Yan was the only one who was still comforting her. Unfortunately, Xiao Yan's face looked defeated at this time, as if he had suffered an extremely serious internal injury. No matter what, the real person should interrogate the blood killers first. Qinar's matter will be mentioned later after all, she is his niece. Although Xiaohu's third uncle also hates Xiaohu Qinar for causing such a big trouble, but seeing her crying like this, I felt a little angry and a little weak, so I made a suggestion. Master Xiang snorted coldly. The Xiaohu family couldn't run away this time. He was not afraid of what Uncle Xiaohu would do, so he had a few of the blood killers tied up with immortal ropes brought over. Once the wolf head mask was taken off, everyone took a breath of cold air. After everyone in the Xiang sword sect saw the big man at the head clearly, everyone sneered. Uncle Xiaohu exclaimed. Brother Xiao? How could it be you? The burly man under the wolf mask had a face that was 70% similar to Xiao Yan's. After the mask was taken off, he was silent for a long time, and suddenly he laughed. As of now, I never expected to meet you all under such circumstances. Xiao Yan looked very ugly and subconsciously shouted, Dad. The Xiao family, which had been dead for many years and was killed by blood, suddenly appeared alive in front of everyone. Under great stimulation, Uncle Xiaohu actually stepped back several steps, with disbelief on his face. Xiao Yan looked a little happy, and his expression was a little overjoyed. Maybe he never thought that his dead relatives could still appear in front of him at this moment. In the plot, Lily Nai didn't know these things. Naturally, Lily only found out at this time that the notorious blood killers were actually the Xiao family who claimed to have been wiped out by the blood killers. And even more bloody, the person turned out to be a member of Xiao Yan's clan. The Xiao family is in a corner. The family received a magic scroll decades ago. As long as 100,000 souls are collected, the Xiao family will be immortal and can ascend across borders. This temptation is too great. The entire Xiao clan couldn't help but become possessed by evil. It's just that Xiao Yan, who was still young at the time, was not naturally suitable for this magic method, and Xiao Yan seemed to be born with luck. When he was born, people from the Xiaohu family used divination for him and knew that Xiao Yan in the future, he may be the ruling talent of the entire world of immortality. In the future, the important task of the Xiao family to unify the world of immortality may fall on him. In addition, Xiao's father could not bear to kill his son, so he had to leave him outside after being injured and pretend to be. It looks like the Xiao family was exterminated. In fact, he led his tribe to hide behind his back, killing people to collect souls. Over the years, they have collected nearly 30,000 souls. They originally thought that after possessing the Xiang sword, they could cause greater damage as long as the Xiang sword sect was eliminated. Unifying the entire world of immortality will be achieved sooner or later. When no one can stop him, he unexpectedly sneaks into the Xiang sword sect, but in the end his goal is not successful. Ahem, now the matter is over. The winner and the loser will be killed or beheaded. Brother Xiang can only be left to his own devices. Father Xiao coughed twice and glanced at Xiao Yan, with a look of regret on his face. His plan was about to succeed, but he didn't expect it to fall short. You can imagine the disappointment in his heart at this moment. Humph, is this the little girl from the Nai family back then? Father Xiao's eyes turned. He turned his attention to Lily again, with a gloomy expression. Old man Nai actually dared to let my son call him daddy. It's a pity that he died too early and I didn't let him die in my hands, little girl. It can be considered a great fate, but I escaped a disaster back then, leaving me in trouble today. I deserve to be killed, I deserve to be killed. When Lily heard this, she knew that the Xiao family had never thought of letting go of the Nai family in the plot. People like Xiao's father thought that the Nai family had taken advantage of Xiao Yan because Nai's father had adopted him and saved Xiao Yan's life. I am afraid that after Xiao Yan sold the Nai family's property in the plot, the Nai family's servants should also be poisoned by Xiao's father just like this life. Thinking of this, Lily let out a sigh of relief, but also felt very uncomfortable and painful. This should be the original owner's emotions, proving that her guess was correct. It's too late to tell whether you should be killed or not. Now I only know that it is you who should die, and your son will be infamy for the ages because of the actions of the Xiao family. Your Xiao family will be eradicated, Lily snorted coldly. After making a sound, Father Xiao laughed loudly. I have killed so many people and let these people be buried with me. I am already satisfied. After he finished speaking, a large amount of red light suddenly burst out from his body. The immortal binding rope could not trap him. His body spontaneously ignited without the wind. In a short time, his body was quickly burned into a pile of withered bones. A breeze blew and turned into a pile of withered bones. Nothingness disappeared in front of the stone palace. Everyone was shocked by this unexpected incident, and Xiao Yan subconsciously shouted, "Dad, don't leave. Why are you crying?" Uncle Xiaoho now wanted to stab Xiao Yan to death. The people who were killed in the blood turned out to be the Xiao family who everyone thought had been poisoned a long time ago. However, the Xiao family's only descendant he married a holy girl from the Xiaohe tribe. In the past, due to the long-term friendship between the Xiao family and the Xiaohe family, it was natural for the two families to get married to the Qin and Jin dynasties. And because of Xiao Yan's outstanding beauty, this matter was naturally rumored to be a good talk, and the Xiaohe family could also gaining a reputation as a son who does not dislike his old friends. But now Xiao Yan's father turned out to be a demon cultivator, and he also killed countless people. It is conceivable that even if the Xiaohe family is full of mouths today, it should be impossible to explain this matter clearly. Uncle Xiaoho wanted to die at this time. Even if he only wanted to care about the sun and the moon at this moment, if he thought about the cause and consequences of this matter, from the Nai family being wiped out to Xiaoho Qiner and Xiao Yan's partnership, after getting the lily jade pendant, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that all this was a big conspiracy, especially today. Xiaohu Qiner accidentally saved a boy and brought him into the Xiang sect, broke the Xiang sect's formation, drew blood, and killed everyone. And entered the massacre. Starting with the people of the Xiang sect, and then ending with the blood killers being captured and finding out that the leader of the blood killers was a member of the Xiao family, Uncle Xiaohe himself felt that all these things had something to do with the Xiaohe family. Real person. Uncle Xiaohe now had a smile that was uglier than crying. It was clear that this generation of the Xiaohe family should take advantage of the situation to rise, but why did it end up like this now? Could it be that Xiaohe Qiner did something bad? Just like Lily said, she was born to be a broom star, and the Xiaohe family has been in bad luck for 8 lifetimes because of her? At this moment, she was not only implicated in the lives of dozens of people in the Xiang sect, but also the hundreds of years of life and death, honor and disgrace of the Xiaohe family, which were now ruined. Even though Xiaohe Qiner was his niece whom he had always loved, now Uncle Xiaohe had to admit that what Lily had said before made sense. There was a surge in his chest and blood boiling in his heart. Unable to bear it any longer, he opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood with a wow sound, and then fell straight back, unconscious. "Uncle!" Xiaohu Qiner let out a shrill scream. Her expression was a little frightened. She didn't know what she had done wrong, but in the end it caused such a disaster. She looked at Xiao who was standing aside. Yan took a look and saw that Xiao Yan also looked ashen. The two couples were a little at a loss. The people from the Ziyang sword sect ignored them. After settling the surroundings, Master Ziyang directly abolished Xiahe Qiner and Xiao Yan, and personally led the people to remove the Xiahe family members. He was escorted back to Xiahe's house. The bloody murder case spread in the cultivation world for a while, and the evidence was conclusive. Naturally, everyone hated the Xiao family half to death. In the past, the Xiahe family, which had a good reputation among reclusive families for practicing medicine, suddenly became infamous. Everyone in the world of cultivation united together and decided to abolish the martial arts of the Xiao family and move them to a bitter and cold place in the world of cultivation. In the first battle, Lily recognized her master because she got the purple sun sword. He automatically became the next leader of the Ziyang sword sect and became famous throughout the world in one battle. In the past, the Nai family, which was just a family of ordinary merchants, was also exposed because of Lily's origin. At this time, Nai Bei wanted to live, not to let Xiao Yan and Xiao Hukan'er step on her life, step on the foundation of the Nai family, and fulfill her wish for a happy life. At the same time, she also wanted to let Nai the family is famous all over the world. The Nai family's good deeds are naturally known to the whole world. Xiao Hukan'er and Xiao Yan were both suspected of colluding with Shueshat. Although they were not executed by everyone in the end, they were despised and hunted by everyone in the world of cultivation. Although the members of the Xiahe family were not punished on the surface, in just 2 months, the former reclusive family, the famous Xiahe family, was massacred inexplicably. The bloody massacre that day naturally aroused the resentment of many people, especially those who had relatives and friends who were killed. Naturally, they wanted to seek revenge from them. The Xiahe family has a close relationship with the Xiao family, and Xiao Yan and Xiao Hukan, the reason why their son got married, no one would believe their innocence. The Xiahe family was originally a doctor, and their actual combat ability was not strong. This time they made so many enemies, they were naturally unable to resist. In the end, they became quite popular among the reclusive family. The famous Xiahe clan was gradually wiped out in Cultivation Realm City, leaving only a reputation that would last forever. The descendants who were lucky enough to escape could only live their lives in anonymity. An ordinary-looking carriage drove into the city where the Nai mansion used to be. In the carriage, Li Yangzi was reclining on a soft couch, with Lily leaning on his chest. There was no one driving the carriage, but the horse seemed to be quite spiritual, wandering around the city with the carriage. The world of cultivation was turbulent, but the mortal world was not affected at all. The city restored its previous prosperity. The Nai family had rebuilt the Nai family ancestral hall at the discretion of the government a few years ago, and had received favor from Nai's father. There was a lot of excitement at the moment when people adopted children and inherited the inheritance. A man who looked like a Taoist priest in the city was stopped in front of a hotel. He obviously had no money to pay the bill after drinking. The shop owner was not happy, so the Taoist priest simply sat down cross-legged. After some discussion with the store, Mr. Storyteller prepared to offset the cost of the wine. At first no one paid attention to the Taoist priest, but gradually he opened his mouth and attracted many people to sit over and listen. The angry look on the shopkeeper's face changed when he heard that the Taoist priest started with Nai family. It has softened a bit. After all, many people still remember the good things Father Nai did in the past. It is said that there used to be a great good man in the city, his surname was Nai. He had an only daughter in his middle age because he had done many good things, and he named her Lily. The Taoist priest started from when Nai Bei was born, and then continued after Nai's father rescued Xiao Yan. And finally ended with the end of the world of cultivation. A series of stories he told were so heart-stirring that some people couldn't help but ask, did the daughter of the Xiahe family and the boy named Xiao get their comeuppance? Why not? The Xiahe family colluded with the Xiao family to kill people. Although there is no evidence, the Xiao family killed too many people and eventually caused trouble. Xiaohe was also implicated because of this, and his entire family was wiped out. Well done, well done. Nai Das Han was such a good man in the past, but he didn't expect to adopt such a white-eyed wolf, and actually killed Nai Shanran's only daughter. It can be seen that it is not that he will not be repaid, but the time has not come yet in the crowd. After a burst of cheers, the shopkeeper enthusiastically invited the Taoist priest into the inn for a drink. The Taoist priest shook his head and went in. Xiao Yan and Xia Hukani, who were standing supporting each other in the crowd, looked at each other and couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Out. Xiaohe's family was destroyed. Xiaohe's family was destroyed. Father, mother, third uncle. Xiaohe Qiner murmured to her parents, her pale face showing a bit of gray. She didn't know what she had done wrong and why God would give her such retribution. She had never had any intention of harming others, but now when everyone mentioned her, they all screamed for beating and killing. After learning that all members of the Xiaohe family had been wiped out, Xiaohe Qiner, who had already aged much in just a few months, no longer looked innocent on her face. Since then, I have been living like a bereaved dog for some time. Following Xiao Yan, she dodged left and right, and now she heard that Xiaohe's family had been destroyed. She was inseparable from all this. You also have to take care of your declining health. But she was unwilling to give in. Thinking of Xiao Yan's past scenery, and thinking of her own life just 20 years ago, it was like a dream. Xia Hukani couldn't help but cry when she thought of her dead family members. Xiao Yan was crazy. He couldn't stand such excitement, nor could he stand such a gap. Simply living in his own world and not wanting to wake up again. The carriage that was originally parked at the door of the inn began to walk slowly without anyone driving the horses. In the carriage, Lily knelt down next to Li Yangzi. After experiencing Li Yangzi's injury, the two of them were a little more intimate than before. Just like before, even though she was physically close, Lily still felt a little resistant to him. After feeling the acquaintance outside, Lily pulled Li Yangzi and said, "Look. Xiao Yan." Outside the street, Xiao Yan, who was wearing shabby clothes and a pale face, was sitting outside, shouting, "I am a rare genius in the world of cultivation. No, 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 I am the son-in-law of the Nai family, I am Nai Yan, no, I am Xiao Yan." His memory stayed in the time when he was so famous. Xia Hukani, who was holding a bowl of cold rice next to him, was wiping her tears and coaxing him softly. The two of them were playing and making noise in the street, attracting the attention of the people around them. Occasionally, when someone passed by, he would look at Xiao Yan with disgust. This look even stimulated him to shout loudly and look crazy. "What's there to see?" Li Yangzi, who was lying on the soft couch, looked at Lily with a gloomy look. His eyes fell on someone else again. He moved his hands and finally couldn't hold it back and pulled her into his arms. He entered this world many years before Beihe, planned it well, and slowly spread out, just to keep Beihe slowly, from the beginning of the original plot to change Nai Beihe's 16 life calamities, to the beginning of the gift of Jade, and after Beihe entered the mission, that kind of thought was like planting a seed with his own hands, and now the seed has sprouted and grown up, and it was not in vain for him to bother. Now, although Lily doesn't necessarily like him that much, at least she won't resist him anymore. She truly recognized from the bottom of her heart that he owned her. Lily has been working on a lot of tasks. Although her personality seems gentle and understanding of current affairs, she is actually very determined and perseverant. If he doesn't use this method, he will never get into Lily's heart. Only by forcefully making her realize that she is not just the one who can, only the God who controls her life and is above him can make it possible for her to treat him as her man. At this moment, he was undoubtedly successful. If Lily wanted to say that she liked it, she didn't like it that much. However, with the help of Li Yangzi in 2 consecutive missions, she got used to Li Yangzi's existence. This kind of thing happened again and again, even at the beginning. She still felt a little embarrassed, but once she did it more often, it seemed that she had become a habit, and the feeling of embarrassment, shame, nervousness, and fear at the beginning seemed not to be that serious anymore. After really getting along with Li Yangzi, he didn't seem so aloof and hard to touch. Habits are a scary thing. Even if she was held in his arms now, Lily subconsciously found a way to feel comfortable. Holding Lily in their arms, both of them were satisfied. Lily was satisfied that her mission had finally been completed. Li Yangzi looked at the unconscious prey and smiled softly. This mission was successfully completed. As the carriage passed by, Xiaohukan and Xiao Yan, who were standing in the street crying helplessly, gradually disappeared from sight. In Bei Nai's hometown, being able to see the fate of these two people was considered as fulfilling the original owner's wish. In the plot, Xiao Yan was born with good fortune, stepping on the Nai family to rise to power. Although Xiao Yan and Xiaohukan are called the saviors of the world of cultivation, they are actually more like two disaster stars, causing disasters wherever they go. Wherever they are taken, others will die, but it is the two of them who will be fulfilled. Now that they have ended up like this, it can be said that the two of them have reaped the fruits of whatever they sow. Xiao Yan didn't return the jade pendant at first, but the result was completely different. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 415. In addition to the fact that the power of human beings in this world of cultivating immortals is not as high as that in the last world of cultivating immortals, the lifespan of human beings is also extremely short. As long as there are no ascended human races, they can only live for 100 or so years at most. Lily returned to when he was in the starry sky. Li Yangzi also followed him back to the starry sky. When she saw Li Yangzi again, Lily no longer felt embarrassed and a little scared when she entered the space before. She didn't even realize that when Li Yangzi sat on the transformed beauty couch, she took the initiative to walk over. "Thank you again, this time help me." Li Yangzi nodded, put his arm around her waist and hugged her into his arms, and touched her face with his lips. "The task is completed, Lily Nai is very satisfied." In this mission, Xiao Yan and Xiaohukan met the fate they deserved. Nai Bei's own grievances were also cleared, and the Nai family's previous accommodation of Xiao Yan was also known to the world. Lily's wish must have been fulfilled, and Lily knew it, and nodded when she heard Li Yangzi's words. Her information appeared again in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 82, out of 100. Appearance, 87, out of 100. Physical strength, 75, 100 full points. Force, 49, out of 100 points. Spirit, 70, out of 100 points. Reputation, 37, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Intermediate Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements and Bagua, Slight Dabbling. Charisma, 63, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. Lily was leaning next to Li Yangzi when she saw the information appearing in the starry sky. There was a look of confusion on her face. After this mission, almost every attribute value of hers increased by at least 2 points. Li Yangzi once said that as the mission progresses, many people may not have the same attribute value as hers. The reason why it was high was that what could be given to her was limited. Usually, it would take several tasks to be stacked together to increase the attribute value. However, this time the attribute value was increased too much, and she felt a little suspicious. Thinking that this situation seemed to have happened before, Lily narrowed her eyes and glanced at Li Yangzi subconsciously. Why did my attribute value increase so much this time? I wonder if the relationship between the two of them is no longer estranged now than when they were strangers, so Beihi's questions were much less cautious and uneasy than before. As soon as she asked, Li Yangzi's hand that was originally around her waist paused. Then he glanced at Lily and touched her long, straight, and smooth hair. The corners of his eyes were raised slightly, and a dark light flashed quickly in a pair of dark pool-like eyes, and then he said seriously. We are husband and wife, so naturally I can give you extra things sometimes. What he said this time was that the two were husband and wife. And directly skipped the process that Lily had said she was responsible for. I wonder if it was because the two of them had been married in 2 consecutive missions. In addition, the two of them had already had such a close relationship. Although Lily still felt a little uncomfortable with the word husband and wife, she did not find it difficult to accept it. Although she had never had such a relationship before, she had thought about it, but now it sounded as if it had come naturally. There was not much resistance, but she hesitated for a moment. Is it really because of this? Li Yangzi's eyes seemed to hesitate for a moment. Finally he nodded. Seeing this expression, Lily felt even more disbelieving. After asking a few questions, Li Yangzi reluctantly touched her cheek and told the truth as if forced. In fact, because of the physical contact between the two of us, in addition to keeping your body alive during the mission, you will also get something else from me. She didn't expect this answer, and Lily's ears began to feel hot. She really didn't expect that in addition to staying close to Li Yangzi during the mission to survive, she would also have an increase in attribute values. Seeing that Li Yangzi looked a little helpless, she couldn't help but feel guilty, and she was naturally embarrassed to speak again at this moment. Although she vaguely remembered that such a scene had happened before, but at this time, she was shocked by this answer. Lily's face was only forced to be calm, and she cautiously stretched out her arms and hugged him. He raised his arms, mentally cursing himself for asking for trouble when he brought up the most embarrassing issue. Her subtle movements did not hide Li Yangzi's senses. This was the first time she took the initiative to get close to him outside of her mission. Li Yangzi pretended not to see the confusion on Lily's face at this moment, suppressed the smile at the corner of his mouth, and hugged her into his arms. In arms. Although Li Yangzi no longer wants to let Lily enter the mission, he still understands the principle of step by step. Now that he has successfully made Lily accept his existence in her heart, no matter how possessive he is at this time, he still doesn't want to let her go. In the end, he still endured his reluctance and sent her into the mission. Master, Master! Lily seemed to hear someone shaking her body in her ears while she was dazed. The shaking made her feel flustered and nauseated, and she almost vomited when she opened her mouth. Second senior sister, haven't you seen the master meditating? A somewhat honest male voice rang out. Lily raised her eyelids and saw 3 blurry figures squatting in front of her, shaking back and forth. This body seemed to, after suffering some serious injury, it took a while before his vision gradually regained its focus. Master, you're finally awake. The girl who called her before was a girl about 17 or 18 years old, and her hand was still on her arm. When she saw Lily waking up, she was a little surprised at first, and then he pursed his lips. Master, why have you been asleep for so long this time? Do you know how arrogant the 2 masters and disciples of Xianzong are? The old woman Long Xianfang actually took Yesuanzi with us to rush to congratulate Grandpa. It's time to go on an errand. Brother, he belongs to me, I can't let the 2 of them do bad things, Master. When the girl finished saying this, she stamped her feet. She wore exquisite makeup and her hair was permed into big waves. She looked charming beyond her years. She was wearing a tight-fitting short skirt, revealing too she had slender and straight legs, and she was holding a brand-name handbag in her hand. She had an impatient look on her face, and she looked like she was a spoiled character. Lily was so shaken that she felt dizzy and had a headache from being noised by her. She glanced at the other two men, both of whom were about 20 years old. One of them looked handsome and feminine, and his face was indistinguishable from male to female. When he saw Lily, he looked at her at that time, he even winked at her, and the other one was strong and honest. When he met Lily's eyes, he grinned hee and smiled twice at her. "Go out first, let me be quiet." At this moment, Lily hadn't received the plot yet, and was upset by the girl again. She lowered her face and scolded the girl. The girl was stunned for a moment, thinking unwillingly. She wanted to say something, but when she saw Lily's cold expression, she hesitated, pouted, snorted, stepped on a pair of high heels, and went out with a sullen face. The handsome young man rolled his eyes, glanced at Lily, and smiled as he greeted the honest-looking man out. The room suddenly became quiet. Lily sat cross-legged and closed her eyes again. Due to the increase in mental power, the speed of absorbing these plots was much faster than before. A large number of plots were poured into her mind. Lily just frowned in discomfort, and her expression calmed down again. In this plot, mission is divided into Tantra and Sutra. In this world, Tantra and Sutra are not divided into practicing different ways as many people understand. Tantra and Sutra here refer to concepts. Different. Esoteric Buddhism is like a hawk. When it comes to pointing out demons and monsters, it uses strong methods to kill them, while Sutra Buddhism is softer and focuses on influencing. Although the two sects came from the same sect, due to different concepts, later on they broke up with each other and almost turned against each other. This time Lily became the new head of the Tantric sect, Long Lily. Long Bei was an orphan when she was a child. She was raised as a disciple by the previous head of Tantric Buddhism, Long Xianzhen. She learned Taoism from her master Long Xianzhen since she was a child. It was not until she was 18 years old the year before last that Long Xianzhen inadvertently fell into the trap while catching a ghost. She was killed by a powerful ghost, and the position of head of the Tantric sect finally fell to a girl of her age who was only 20 years old and had not even graduated from college. After taking over the position of head, Long Lily not only accepted the position and property left by Long Xianzhen, but also took over the responsibility and pressure of fighting against Xianzong left by Long Xianzhen. Due to their different stances, the two sides are fighting fiercely now. When Long Xianzhen was born, he and Long Xianfang fought endlessly. There were also constant fights between the apprentices they accepted. Long Lily has been fighting with Long Xianfang since she was a child. The only female disciple, Yesuanzi, disliked each other, and they fought openly and secretly with each other until Long Bei inherited the position of head of the Tantric section. When she thought she had defeated Yesuanzi, she did not expect that Yexian was more than diligent in the early stage, but lacked talent. In the later stage, it was as if he had an enlightenment. He was proficient in all spells, and tricks, completely surpassing Long Lily's charm. Even when the two were fighting, Yesuanzi even summoned Yin soldiers. Long Lily was defeated. During the fight between the two, Long Lily was slowly suppressed and went crazy. The two sides fought constantly. She suffered from Yesuanzi several times, but failed to learn well several times. Finally, during a certain fight with Yesuanzi, Yesuanzi was impatient and summoned a fierce ghost to kill Long Lily. At this point, the Tantric sect was defeated, and several disciples were incompetent. Naturally, the battle between the two Tantric sects eventually ended with the disappearance of the Tantric sect. The plot of this trip is very simple. It is the story of the battle between the two masters Long Lily and Xianzong, and finally the story of the master Long Xianzhen's path. The time when Lily arrived happened to be just over a year after Long Xianzhen's death and when Long Lily had just accepted 3 new apprentices. Last night, in order to get angry with the Xianzong people, she was tricked by Long Xianfang into going to a university without permission. He wanted to take over the task of getting rid of a Nine-Yin ghost mother and son who jumped to death in the university, but they were injured by the evil ghost. The time when Lily came was when Long Lily was entangled in Yin Qi. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. P.S. First update. I have been struggling with the name for too long. 4 updates today. Introduction, a funny story about a funny guy who brings a large group of funny guys together to make fun of each other. Title, Apocalypse of Daobi's Cultivation of Immortality. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 416. After receiving the plot, Lily let out a long breath. Long Lily had only one wish this time, which was to overwhelm Yesuanzi, an old enemy, and her master Long Xianfang, to vent his evil anger on behalf of the deceased Long Xianzhen, and to promote the reputation of Tantric Buddhism. After rubbing her swollen head, Lily opened her eyes and took a look around. This was a very exquisite house. Although the furnishings were all as antique as possible, they showed a bit of ingenuity because they were too exquisite. Angry. It was the mahogany imperial concubine couch where Lily was currently meditating. It looked like it was worth a lot of money. There was an exquisite wooden mirror buckled next to it. Lily picked it up and took a look at it, and saw that her face in the mirror was filled with despair, and there were traces between her eyebrows. There was an air of yin that seemed to be substantial, her lips were pale, and her hair was disheveled. She did not have the vitality that a young girl should have, as if she was a female ghost. This time, Long Lily was severely injured by the Nine-Yin ghost mother and son, but she didn't know how to deal with it at all, so the Yin Qi remained in her body. In the end, she was killed by the evil ghost released by Yesuanzi. The two of them fought constantly. But Long Lily never won. She was defeated repeatedly, but suffered countless losses and failed to learn well. Lily sighed. Although Long Lily's body was in a very dangerous stage this time, fortunately she had in the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect, although it is troublesome to drive away the Yin Qi, fortunately, it is not like the previous task, and we no longer have to rely on Li Yangzi's help. In the world of this mission, the Taoist priests have lost a lot of things until now. What is left is only a little bit of skills. Even in Long Lily's memory, there are only a few things about the sisterhood of Long Xianzhen. It's just a superficial look at the Feng Shui home furnishings. It's okay to drive away some ownerless souls, but it's a little difficult to control the evil ghosts. You have to use some things passed down from the ancestors. However, after mission's experience so far, it has been suppressed all the way, and many important magic weapons have been lost long ago. Well, although there are still constant disputes between Tantric and Sutra sects, in fact the two sects are no longer in harmony, and it is precisely because of this. Yexian's subsequent strong rise was very outstanding. In the plot, Long Lily was very dissatisfied and opposed her several times. In the end, she was killed by the impatient Yesuanzi. At this moment, Lily felt something was wrong. At this time, Taoism had almost disappeared, and many magic weapons were lost. However, Yesuanzi in the plot knows many Taoist formulas, and he is very good at drawing talismans. He knows many talismans that have disappeared in this era, such as some long-lost 5 elements curses. She can easily pick them up, and it seems that with ancient martial arts in his possession, Lily had to doubt this so-called Yesuanzi. It's possible that ascetics from some dynasty traveled to the city. With such a doubt in my heart, the most urgent task now is to practice the Tiandamen Tao Te Ching first. This mission world is very beneficial to her. Lily closed her eyes and meditated for a while, and she was a little surprised to find that Long Lily's body was very suitable for Taoism. The reason why Long Lily in the plot was not as good as Yesuanzi in the end, and died tragically at the hands of Yesuanzi, not because Long Lily was not as talented as others, but because she was not the same person as Yesuanzi. She didn't know any of the Taoist techniques, and because Long Xianzhen didn't know a few Taoist techniques at the time. Therefore, what he taught her was limited. In addition, Long Xianzhen left 2 hands before his death, so the Taoist skills that fell into her hands were even more limited. As a result, Long Lily was obviously very talented, but in the end, she couldn't even get a single point. I haven't learned anything at all. She meditated for a while with her eyes closed. Although Long Lily had not learned much before, she had learned Taoism. Therefore, when she slowly started practicing the Tao Te Ching of Tiandi sect, a few hours later Lily could feel a slow flow of energy in her body. A trickle began to swim between the muscles and veins. After practicing this Tao Te Ching, it could dispel the poison of the corpse king that wrongly had left on her body. Now it is naturally easy to dispel the yin qi of a fierce ghost. By the time Lily jumped down from the bed, she had already felt that the yin energy in her body had completely dissipated, and her limbs seemed to be relaxed now. The room was dark. It was already night from the time the story was received until now. The surroundings were quiet. Several of Long Lily's apprentices were nowhere to be seen. Lily turned on the lights in the room and took the ones aside again. She looked in the mirror and saw that the girl in the mirror now looked full of vitality, with even a blush on her cheeks. The previous lifelessness was gone, and Long Lily's usually pale face now looked healthy and beautiful. "Master, are you awake?" As soon as the light was turned on, there was a burst of honest questions from outside. Someone knocked on the door. Lily frowned and said, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and a tall and sturdy young man walked in obediently. This was the last of the 3 disciples Long Lily had accepted. His name was He King Han, who was originally one of the founding marshals from Beijing. The He family has a very large family background. When Long Xianzhen was still alive, he loved to deal with powerful people. This was also the reason why Tantric Buddhism was looked down upon by Xian Buddhism. Long Xianfang believed that the senior sister was vain and had always looked down upon her. Long Beihe was brought up by Long Xianzhen, and she has a similar personality to Long Xianzhen. Although she is not very old, she has accepted 3 apprentices so far. She wants to defeat Xianzong. Each apprentice has a greater background than the other. Among them, the third one of the apprentices he accepted was Wang Xishan, the second son of the mayor of Beijing. The other was Jian Yunyun, who also came from a political family in Beijing. The last one, He King Han, had the highest background, but his personality was taciturn. He was not as eloquent as the first 2 apprentices. The relationship between him and Long Lily is close. Where are Wang Xishan and the others? After meditating for a long time, Long Lily's body had not reached the vulgar stage, so Lily felt a little hungry at the moment, so she stood up and stretched her muscles twice before asking. He King Han squinted his eyes and glanced at Lily suspiciously. Soon his masculine face returned to its previous honest look. "I'm going down the mountain to eat, drink and have fun." The few apprentices that Long Beihe accepted were all from small backgrounds. Except for Jian King Han, who was taciturn and usually didn't like to talk, the other 2 people called Long Beihe a master because of their origins, but they actually didn't take Long Beihe to heart and behaved in front of her. There was a vague sense of superiority to others. She had already guessed the personalities of the 2 people. Lily didn't take it to heart. She just nodded and walked out of the room. Although Long Lily was nominally living in the mountains at this time, Long Xianzhen had good relations with many powerful people when he was still alive. Therefore, Tantric Buddhism received tributes from many people in power. The place where he nominally lived in the mountains was actually a small villa. The decoration inside is unique and the environment is beautiful. Although Long Lily is young and a little greedy for fame, she is actually very hard-working. She spends most of her time practicing Taoism, and naturally ignores some mundane matters. Lily entered the kitchen. "Look, it's clean inside, not even half a grain of rice in it." Are you hungry? He King Han followed her into the kitchen. Seeing her looking around and curling her lips, he couldn't help but ask her. Lily nodded, thought about it and said decisively, let's go down the mountain. Eat. She planned to practice Taoism in a few days after eating, and then catch the female ghost that had caused her to be haunted by evil spirits before and throw it to Xianzong, so as to harm Long Xianfang, an old treacherous person. He is also a disrespectful uncle. Although the two factions are constantly fighting openly and secretly, it is too much for someone like Long Xianfang to plot Long Lily to die because of his disdain for tantric behavior and his personal grudge with Long Xianzhen. However, although Long Beihe himself was too impulsive, Long Xianfang had evil intentions. Long Lily couldn't swallow this breath, so Lily naturally had to vent her bad breath first. Seeing that she seemed to be a different person, He King Han agreed silently. The two of them drove down the mountain and found a restaurant to fill their stomachs. When Lily saw that He King Han was about to send her up the mountain, he glanced at him curiously. Aren't you going to go back? Although Long Lily has 3 apprentices in name, because of her young age, the 3 apprentices don't actually respect her very much. They usually treat her as their equal. In addition, the 3 of them all come from aristocratic families, so there is inevitably a sense of arrogance in them. Except for the taciturn He King Han, the other 2 are not very respectful to her. Instead, they have a somewhat arrogant feeling. They usually shout. Long Beihe's word master seemed to be sarcastic. Although Beihe wanted to fight with Yesuanzi's masters and apprentices again, she was not prepared to accept Long Beihe's 3 lagging apprentices. Except for He King Han, who was of the noblest origin. There is no need to use Dragon Lily for intrigue. The other 2 use Dragon Lily as a way to get close to the He family, while the other uses Dragon Lily as a tool to fight against Yesuanzi. Yesuanzi and Long Beihe are in the same year this year. In addition to studying in mission, the 2 most important people are in the same school. He King Han's younger brother He Qingleng is currently pursuing Yesuanzi and Long Beihe's apprentice Jian Yunyun. It was He Qingleng's previous girlfriend. Because of these relationships, there were many conflicts between Jian Yunyun and Yesuanzi. Long Lily and Yesuanzi later fought a life and death relationship. In addition to the conflict between Tantra and Xianzong, there are also reasons why Jian Yunyun instigated the instigation. Although Lily would not let Yesuanzi go now, she did not want to accept those 2 apprentices anymore. She was not suitable to get involved in the so-called partisan disputes. The father of her eldest apprentice Wang Xishan was running for election recently. He relies on the help of the He family, so Wang Xishan came to the mountain today. Otherwise, the young man who only cares about eating, drinking, and having fun all year round would only be in the name of master and apprentice with Long Lily. The main purpose of his coming to the mountain is to hope that Long Lily can go to the He family for the Wang family, and Jian Yunyun's purpose of going up the mountain is to hope that Long Lily can defeat Yesuanzi for her. As for the eldest prince of the He family, Lily is a little confused about his purpose of going up the mountain. This he has the highest background, but also the highest frequency of going up the mountain. It seems that he really comes to learn Taoism. However, because he is usually taciturn and does not like to get close to Long Lily. He seems cold despite his calmness, so Long Lily doesn't like him. When talking to him, he doesn't like him. Very few. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 417. I'll take you back. Jian King Han shook the car key in his hand. The road up the mountain was very long. Now both of them had entered the city. It was already dark. I'm afraid the taxi wouldn't want to go up the mountain, but some people were willing to go up the mountain. Lily was unable to cope with the fear of a young girl. Lily saw what Jeon King-han meant. Although she wanted to say that she was not afraid of the so-called taxi driver now, she frowned when she saw Jeon King-han's face and agreed. Come down. When he returned to the mountains, it was getting late. He was sent back as a disciple in name. Jeon King-han didn't even mention leaving yet, so Lily simply let him find a room to rest at will, and she went in to wash up. Then the whole night passed by meditating. When the genius had just dawned, Lily had already stood up. After a night of meditation, the yin qi in Long Lily's body had been completely driven away. Lily stood up and began to practice star training. This time, Yesuanzi seemed to have some skills. In the later stages, in addition to some Taoist spells, this person seemed to also have a lot of knowledge in martial arts. If she wanted to defeat such a mortal enemy, Lily would naturally have to use as many life-saving methods as possible before she knew her. Long Lily's body is really good. When the sun shines on her body unconsciously, Lily has already completed a set of movements. She straightened up, sweat pouring down her body, her clothes clinging tightly to her body, and a steady voice came. What are you practicing for? There was no sound beside her just now, but now she suddenly heard voices. Lily looked back subconsciously and saw He King-han with his hands folded around his chest, staring at him as if he had just run back. He looked at her with a bit of exploration in his eyes. Maybe he just entered the mission. I haven't even been able to practice Taoism or martial arts yet. Lily didn't notice He King-han's presence at all when He King-han appeared. This shows that He King-han must be a practitioner, and his skills should be extraordinary. Such a person would actually sneak into Long Lily as his apprentice. He was born in the He family. Even if he wanted Taoism, he could recruit talented people. He would also lower his status to be Long Lily's apprentice, which made Lily a little suspicious of him. It's just a simple training method. If you like it, you can also learn it. Lily endured all the speculations in her heart and answered calmly. He King-han shook his head with a smile and said softly. Go down the mountain together. Today happens to be the weekend. Except for Friday night, Long Lily will go back to the mountain to stay for 2 nights. She lives next door to the school the rest of the time. She really should go down the mountain this weekend. She heard that He King-han wanted her to go down the mountain together. When there is nothing. Lily nodded. At the foot of the mountain, he asked He King-han to drive him to buy a lot of talismans and other items. Lily was going to collect the Juyin ghost mother and son in a few days. After all, the longer it takes, the more people die in the school, and the stronger the ghost mother and son become. Most importantly, it was Yesuanzi who benefited from this incident. She didn't know what method she used to the ghost mother and son subdued their grievances and sent them to the underworld. Because this incident was a favor to the school, the principal was very flattering to her and gave her a lot of money. This changed the poverty-stricken environment of Xianzong and also made Ye Xianzhi's family also benefited, and she got her first pot of gold. Later, she was able to buy medicinal materials for practice, and finally became very powerful. Although Lily was preparing to defeat Yesuanzi with her strength this time, she would be happy if it could cause her a little trouble and make her success more difficult. With their current strength, this ghost mother and son will use force to it was a bit reluctant to use her own spells to absorb her, but it would not be difficult to absorb her if some spells were added. Thinking of this, Lily did not hesitate to spend money to buy a lot of talismans, paper, cinnabar, and other items. She said at this moment the force sensor is not strong, so I may not be able to draw every picture successfully, so I bought many backups. When he carried her into the car, He King-han looked at her with a half smile but not a smile. You have bought so much, why don't you give up on going to the business school? The industrial and business school he mentioned was exactly where the 9 yin ghosts and their children came from. There was a girl who got pregnant after being deceived by a teacher in the school. In the end, the teacher wanted to break up with her. She jumped out of the teaching school in a moment of sadness. Because she was pregnant before her death, the unborn child was resentful and the mother was resentful. In addition, it was cloudy when the girl died and she was wearing a red dowry. Therefore, by chance, she became fierce ghosts, very scary. At that time, Long Lily was not afraid of tigers as a newborn calf, and Long Xianfang did not dare to touch the fierce ghosts without preparation. It was better for her to go there alone. If not for a team of security guards suddenly appearing that night, they were full of yang and forced the ghost mother and son. Retreat, I'm afraid she would have died at the hands of the evil spirit and been possessed. After suffering such a big loss, of course you have to regain your position. Otherwise, do you really think that suffering a loss is a blessing? Lily sorted out the cinnabar and other items in her bag. When she heard He King Han's words, she couldn't help but smile. Glancing at him, He King Han had the same facial features, with a bit of honesty between his brows, but he didn't have the sunshine and cheerfulness of his age. Instead, he looked a bit mature. When he heard Lily's words, he grinned. He smiled, stretched out his hand to scratch his head, and said without hesitation, "Then I'll go with you." Compared with the other two in the plot, this apprentice is quite affectionate, but Lily Long doesn't like his dullness and calmness. Therefore, although the two of them have the title of master and apprentice, in fact, Lily Long has never really taught him. What, after all, the two of them are not much different in age. Long Lily accepted him as his apprentice just because of the status of the He family. At this moment, he looked like he was going to follow her to catch ghosts, which made Lily hesitate. "Do you really want to learn this technique?" He King Han laughed when he heard this, showing his white teeth. His originally calm face now showed a bit of freedom and openness. "I really want to learn." What he said revealed it means that he wants to learn, but the He family may not agree. After all, the He family is such a powerful family. Even if he has that idea, the He family may not agree. The reason why he didn't care about him before is that he doesn't know what is going on in his heart. Lily pursed her lips, having already guessed this result. She lowered her head and stopped talking. Returning to her rented room, Lily said goodbye to He King Han. She practiced Xin Chen Taijutsu for a while. After feeling that her body was much lighter than before, she sat cross-legged for a while and felt that her energy was almost restored. And then started to draw the talisman. This time, she planned to collect the evil spirits first, so Lily drew the 5 thunder curse first, which suppresses all evil spirits. This time, the evil ghosts were different from those that Long Lily had encountered in the past. The first talisman was drawn very smoothly, with some Taoist power on it. Although it was not as powerful as the talisman Lily drew during her heyday in the monastic world, now with the orthodox Taoist mental skills she had learned, even the talisman she had just drawn was in practice. The Taoist skills are not very high at the moment, but the power of the talisman is much stronger than the previous talisman passed down by the so-called ancestor in Long Xianzhen's hand. The second time she failed, Lily was not discouraged. Once she failed, she would try again until her energy became too much. She meditated and practiced Taoism for a while and drew talismans again. In this way, the whole night passed quickly. After drawing 4-5 thunder curses, Lily was very satisfied with the results in one night. She had classes in the morning, packed her things and went to school. Taking advantage of the absence of classes in the afternoon, Lily was originally going to go to the School of Industry and Commerce to find the principal. Unexpectedly, as soon as she left the school, a familiar car parked outside the school gate. Here, when the car window was lowered, He King Han waved to her. Lily got in the car. Before she could speak, He King Han started the car. Seeing that the direction he was turning around, he was going to the business school. Lily's lips moved but she didn't speak. A series of crisp ringtones rang. When Lily took the phone out of her bag, Jian Yunyun's name was beating on the phone. As soon as she connected the phone, Jian Yunyun's shout came over. Lily, Lily. Yesuanzi, this little bitch, is trying to steal business from you. She went to the industrial and commercial school and wants to take over the recent troubles there. He Qingling is also helping her. You must say this for me. I'll go over right away, and you have to go too. Jian Yunyun seemed a little anxious on the phone, and her voice sounded like crying when she spoke. Before Lily could speak, she hung up the phone again. It was obvious that she was in a hurry to rush to the business school. Lily, she frowned, but she was going to the business school this time, so she didn't call Jian Yunyun again. Just thinking that she was about to meet Yesuanzi, the original owner's body instinctively surged with excitement. Emotions of excitement and resentment come. Are you ready? Do you want me to find someone to help you? He King Han took advantage of the gap in driving and turned to look at her. Jian Yunyun's voice was loud just now, and Lily was sitting next to the driver's seat again. Naturally, he heard Jian Yunyun's words just now. The He family has an extraordinary status. It is not difficult to find a few Taoist priests with real talents. Lily knew what he meant, but she shook her head and curled her lips. No, I'm ready. Hearing what she said, He King Han smiled and remained silent. The car parked in front of the School of Industry and Commerce. As soon as Lily pushed the car door and got out, Jian Yunyun drove her arrogant red sports car and parked in front of the school entrance. In front of the door, she took off the sunglasses on her face. When she saw Lily, her eyes couldn't help but light up. She stretched out her hand and waved to her. Lily, here. Lily ignored her and Jian Yunyun stamped his feet. Seeing that there were no cars left or right, he quickly ran over here, pulled Lily and ran to the school. I tell you, you must not let that little bitch Yesuanzi steal it before you. I have already called my family and asked them to find a few Taoist priests for me. Don't worry, there will be no problem tonight. To be continued. P.S. Third update. Mr. GCAO is back. Please give me some fans' votes. Beg for your fans' votes by wallowing in cuteness. You annoying little fairies, give your fans' votes to others. You're disgusting. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 418. Jian Yunyun gasped and briefly explained today's situation. It turned out that Yesuanzi was also eyeing the female ghost here in the business school. Recently, Yesuanzi seemed to be a different person. There were inexplicable strange things about him. She had some cold charm, and after she met Shao she actually made Shao look at her differently and pursue her after dumping Jian Yunyun. Although the Jian family is also a political family, in terms of family background, Jian Yunyun cannot compare with He Qingling. Therefore, after being dumped, she did not dare to express her resentment even though she was full of resentment, so she had to vent her hatred on Yesuanzi. But Yesuanzi, who used to be arrogant but had no real abilities, has become more powerful recently. When Jian Yunyun was arguing with her on Saturday night, she unexpectedly hit him in some unknown way, causing severe pain in his body. After 2 hours, Jian Yunyun couldn't swallow her breath at that time, and her family didn't allow her to provoke He Qingling. She remembered that she still had a master in name, so she drove up the mountain to vent her anger on Lily, but she was killed just after entering the mission. Lily drove down the mountain. The girl opened her mouth and couldn't stop it. He King Han next to him had a calm face and said nothing. After a while, Jian Yunyun seemed to notice him. He rolled his eyes and reached out to let go of his arm. Holding Lily's arms tightly, He King Han subconsciously stretched out his hand to wrap around him, but He King Han's eyes turned cold, and he quickly stood next to Lily, frowning. What are you going to do? Exactly. Jian Yunyun curled her lips, and secretly scolded He King Han for his incomprehensible remarks, but she said, Brother He, please help me talk about King Han. We are so good, why would he want to break up? Aren't you my junior brother? Please help me once. Lily listened to her commotion all the way, and several people arrived at the office of the president of the Industrial and Commercial University. Because Jian Yunyun might have said hello before, they went in very smoothly. At this moment, the president of the Industrial and Commercial University was waiting for them in the principal's office. By coincidence, Yesuanzi's master and apprentice are also there. Long Xianfang was wearing a gray tunic suit with a stand-up collar and a man's haircut. His eyes looked a little cold. When he saw Lily, a sarcastic smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Long Xianzhen was useless back then. She died and left a disciple who was even more useless. She couldn't accept that evil spirit. Just don't embarrass yourself and ruin the reputation of our mission sect. Long Xianfang is about 40 years old this year. After getting married and having children, and only taking on a disciple like Yesuanzi a few years ago, Long Xianfang devoted almost all his life to how to kill Long Xianzhen, making the reputation of Mission Xianzong surpass that of esotericism. Long Xianzhen's early death made her feel as if she had a serious problem in her heart, and her face looked much better than before. But when he saw Lily, Long Xianfang's face still darkened. The old enemy was provoked to death by her, but there was still a small nuisance left in her eyes. The fierce ghost didn't kill her last time, it was too easy for Long Lily. Lily ignored Long Xianfang's cynicism. To modern people, Long Xianfang's abilities did seem to be some tricks. But for Lily, who had actually lived during the period when Taoism was in vogue, Long Xianfang's method seemed ridiculously inferior to her. Lily didn't take the harsh words she said at heart. Instead, she focused her gaze on Yesuanzi, who was unusually quiet at the side. This old enemy of Long Lily has obviously changed, and his momentum has changed a lot than before. Yesuanzi originally came from a poor family, and the family burden was very heavy. At a young age, she had to shoulder the burden of supporting the family and earning tuition for herself. More than 3 years ago, when she was in high school, she became a disciple of Long Xianfang. The reason was that she joined a KTV as a service staff, but was taken advantage of by one of the rich and powerful children. Although Yesuanzi came from a bad background, she had a very high self-esteem and was arrogant and never bowed her head. She almost got into a fight with that powerful kid and was kicked out of the KTV because she didn't know the current affairs. When they were having a quarrel, Long Xianfang came by to help her and pulled her out of the KTV. She was admitted to Mission Xianzong's sect. Because of her background, although Yesuanzi used to seem a bit lonely, she developed this cold and protective look because of her excessive inferiority complex. Therefore, no matter how Long Xianfang taught her Taoism later, she could not erase her temperament. She has low self-esteem in her bones and a sense of inferiority formed by years of living. Sometimes her personality is as sensitive as a cat. She doesn't like Long Lily, who used to live a very prosperous life with Long Xianzhen, and thinks that Long Lily smells like copper. So although the two of them are about the same age, they have a big quarrel every time they meet because of their different tempers. But at this time, Yesuanzi seems to be a completely different person, with a bit of calmness and decisiveness in her eyes. When Long Xianfang opened his mouth to ridicule Lily, she just glanced at Lily from the corner of her eye and quickly turned her head away. The contempt that comes from her bones is not that of Yesuanzi, and there is an inexplicable strong self-confidence in her, which is not what Yesuanzi had in the past. In comparison, she was sitting next to Long Xianfang, and Long Xianfang on the contrary, she made him look like a servant, showing off his teeth and claws and making him look ridiculous. At this point, Lily was 100% sure that Yesuanzi was no longer the person he was. Ms. Jane, is this the Miss Long you introduced? When the principal of the business school saw Lily, the smile on his face suddenly froze. The principal was about 40 years old, but he had a big head on his head. However, most of his hair has fallen out, and his face now looks a bit tired. Apparently, the recent hauntings in the business school have made him have trouble sleeping and eating. There is a look of disappointment in his eyes. He was originally seeing the dragon. When Sun Fang brought a female apprentice over, he was a little disdainful, but now he felt that the young man was even more unreliable in comparison, and he saw clearly that Lily was the one who was arrested by security guards on campus 2 days ago. He didn't believe that such a person could subdue the evil spirit for him when he carried away the female student who was suddenly possessed by evil spirits. This, Master Longtian was introduced by Master He. Miss Jian, look at this. The principal made a decision in his heart and naturally wanted to block Lily back. He just couldn't speak, and Jian so he couldn't help but yell. You're blind. Even my master can't recognize him, so what about the second young master He? Now the eldest young master He is here, do you have any opinions? Jian Yunyun pointed at He who was silent next to him. King Han raised his chin at the principal triumphantly, whether you listen to young master He or He Qing Leng, you decide for yourself. There was a bitter look on the principal's face. They all had high backgrounds and he couldn't afford to offend them at all, especially when he saw He King Han beside him. The principal stood up in a hurry, saluted, and laughed dryly. No need to worry about it, just let her try it once. She will die anyway. I can just come back tomorrow. Yesuanzi suddenly stood up and frowned impatiently. When she passed by Lily, she held up her hand. He held up a seal and suddenly put it on Lily's back. Long Lily, I wish you a safe journey. Her voice was a little cold, and there was a bit of chill in her words. Lily only felt that as Yesuanzi's hand came closer to her, a small yin gathering array was shot into her body. Lily turned to look at her, but seeing Yesuanzi's lips raised impatiently, with contempt and disdain on his face, he took the lead to leave the office. It's better to die early and go find that damn master of yours, so as not to disgrace the ancestors of Mission Long. Sun Fang said a few words before leaving. As soon as she left, Jian Yunyun stamped her feet angrily. What? If you dare to be arrogant in front of me, I will send someone to teach her a lesson. No need. Lily activated the magic power of the Tao Te Ching in her body, stretched out her hand and gently brushed the place where Yesuanzi had just patted her, and narrowed her eyes. She had no intention of letting Yesuanzi go, so she didn't. Thinking that Yesuanzi would dare to play such a dirty trick on her. This yin gathering formation is not a Taoist priest of this period. Lily is sure of this, because the previous Long Lily has never even heard of this spell. This spell is a spell that was only used by monks in ancient times. According to this gathering formation, the yin formation, should have been set up by Taoist priests with great supernatural powers to raise zombies and ghosts. When Rong Li and Lily lived together, Lily had set up such a formation for him in the place where Rong Li lived, but he did not expect that this would happen. The gathering yin formation can be formed into small seals and used to cast on people. In the final analysis, this spell has the effect of absorbing yin energy. The deeper the magic, the more obvious the effect of the formation. Yesuanzi just formed a seal on her body, probably because he wanted her to attract yin energy into her body. At night, when fighting against the 9 yin ghost mother and son, the yin qi overwhelms the living breath in the body, and when the time comes to fight against the 9 yin ghost mother and son, she will die at the hands of the Li ghost. Because this move is silent, even if she ends up dying at the hands of the Li ghost. With it in hand, I am afraid that even if a monk comes, he may not be able to see it. Lily suddenly laughed and patted the formation on her body. The gloomy gray energy that had just gathered in the formation gradually dispersed. Just leave this evil ghost matter to me. Lily turned her head and glanced at the direction where the 2 masters and apprentices left just now, and the corners of her mouth curled up. There was no class for half the afternoon, so Lily meditated in the principal's office. He King Han was by her side, but Jian Yunyun, who started shouting that he wanted her to fight Yesuanzi, couldn't stay still and started to idle around the school. It shook. The time of meditation passed very quickly. Lily ran the Tao Te Ching several times. When she felt very energetic, the sky gradually became dark. The whole school was filled with a gloomy air. I wonder if it was because someone had died and was shrouded in resentment. It was getting dark very quickly in the campus. When Lily opened her eyes, the principal and He King Han were standing beside her. With a trembling look on his face, "What should I do now?" To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 419. He King Han, aren't you going back? Lily glanced at He King Han, stretched out and made two body stretching movements. He King Han shook his head and put his hands in his pockets. "I'll go there with you." The principal wanted to leave, but he was afraid that something would happen to the eldest son of the He family. He would not be able to explain it when the time came, so he followed along with a grimace. Lily thought for a moment and took out two triangular talisman papers from her pocket and handed them to the two of them respectively. "Take them with you." This was what she occasionally used to change her mood when she was disappointed when she drew the 5 thunder curse last night. Although she had not been on this mission for a long time, the spell she drew was still far more powerful than those drawn by ordinary heavenly masters because of her study of the orthodox Tao Te Ching. Even though the spell had no lethality, but it is enough to protect King Han and the two from evil spirits entering their bodies. The two took it over, and the principal looked unconvinced. As soon as Lily left the office door, Jian Yunyun hurriedly led 3 people dressed as Taoist priests in yellow robes over. His eyes lit up when he saw Lily. Liang proudly said, "Master, I have brought someone over." When the Taoist priests saw Lily, they snorted, but Lily ignored them and asked the principal to lead the way to where the girl jumped from the building. It got dark very quickly. Several people took out their mobile phones and turned on the flashlight. When they arrived at the teaching building, the roof was almost covered with clouds. There was no moonlight at all tonight, and it was so dark. "What should we do now?" As soon as everyone got to the top of the building, the principal's voice started to tremble a little. It was quiet all around. The students moved out of this teaching building after the accident. There was no one there so far, which seemed extremely strange. As soon as the principal opened his mouth, there were even echoes from all around. A shrill meow sounded, and Jian Yunyun frowned. Where did that wildcat come from? It scared people. Although this girl has a proud personality, she is also silly and bold. Lily frowned when she heard this and subconsciously handed a peace charm to her hand. Suddenly a melodious singing voice came, "Do you love me or not?" This song sounded in the middle of the night, and the voice was still a very sad female voice. Everyone couldn't help but get goosebumps all over their bodies. The principal stammered. The dead girl had studied professional vocal music for several years. The words fell. On the edge of the building, a figure wearing red clothes and long hair appeared in front of everyone. The principal almost screamed. Jian Yunyun was shocked when he saw such a scene, and subconsciously hid behind Lily. The Taoist priests obviously did not expect the mother and child ghost to appear so quickly. He King Han hurriedly went to take out the thing in his hand, but He King Han subconsciously took a half step towards Lily. Lily pushed him away impatiently. "You're here again. Why are the people here always these annoying flies instead of him?" The female voice with her back to everyone rang out faintly. One moment, everyone clearly saw her standing on the edge of the top floor, but the next moment suddenly in an instant, her face, which was bleeding from all its orifices and extremely pale, appeared in front of everyone. Her facial features had been knocked out of place, and she looked extremely terrifying. Jian Yunyun was so frightened that he screamed and waved his hands randomly. She also pinched the peace talisman Lily gave her. With this wave, the female ghost screamed, and a burst of green smoke suddenly appeared on her face. The talisman in Jian Yunyun's hand suddenly turned into a burst of black ash and fell to the ground. This incident made everyone dumbfounded. Jian Yunyun was also shocked. Seeing the talisman that had turned into ashes in his hand, he stared at Lily with a mournful face. "Master, there is a road to heaven, but there is no door to hell." The female ghost suddenly reached out and took off her head, which was smashed like a watermelon, and carefully touched the area on her face that had just been injured by the talisman. Her hands were so white that they had a sinister aura, and they quickly smoothed the scars on her face until her face became smooth and fair, just like a photo that had been beautified with beautiful pictures, weird and unreal. She put her head back on her neck. The weird scene in front of them scared several people's backs to numbness. Jian Yunyun, who was so bold just now, grabbed Lily tightly with his hand and his body was shaking violently. The female ghost was still chattering endlessly. "Lily Len might as well take out a 5 thunder spell and throw it at her, there's so much nonsense. 5 elements thunder, follow my orders." There was a sound of thunder, and suddenly a bolt of lightning broke through the layers of clouds in the sky. The moon, which was originally blocked by the clouds, suddenly showed some brilliance. The huge thunder and lightning struck down and hit the female ghost. The female ghost wailed, and half of her originally solid body suddenly dispersed and became looming. She seemed to be irritated, and suddenly her stomach bulged up like a balloon. Her stomach kept moving. Her fingernails became dark and long, and she suddenly scratched her stomach, and a small blood-red head was drilled. Then a little ghost baby crawled out from her belly, grinning at everyone. "I want you to die, I want you to die," the female ghost screamed, and the clouds that had just broken quickly closed again. Seeing this scene, Jian Yunyun reached out and pulled Lily. "Lily, let's go, let those people." Before she finished speaking, several Taoist priests she invited turned around and started running when they saw something was wrong. Jian Yunyun was so angry that she stamped her feet, but Lily made a gesture again. "Heaven and earth are infinite." She thought of the gate of heaven and earth. After the formula, the Taoist magic began to operate in the body. The female ghost seemed to feel fear. At this time, a humanized look of fear appeared on her face. Lily Muta paused for a moment, looked at the female ghost and sneered, "I still have a few more 5 elements thunder spell, now I give you 2 choices, either be subdued by me or die." She had no intention of transforming into a female ghost, nor did she want to refine her so-called grievances. Instead, she was preparing to suppress her with strong means. She saw a few talisman papers and the knot on Lily's hand. The female ghost was startled when she saw the handprint. After her face twisted for a while, suddenly a sound pierced the air in the distance. It was like someone shot a sharp bow and arrow made of talisman paper from the air. When it landed on the female ghost, his body suddenly became filled with resentment, and his face was filled with black energy, as if he was suddenly violent. He let out a sharp cry and walked towards Lily. The ghost baby that had just crawled out also began to crawl towards Lily. At an extremely fast speed, the thin black and red arms grabbed Lily, and the small mouth that was originally small suddenly became very large, and it opened its mouth to bite Lily's leg. Faced with such a female ghost who suddenly became violent, Lily saw the long arrow just now and guessed that someone was causing trouble. Fortunately, she was prepared this time, so she threw out another 5 thunder spell without thinking. The ghost retreated, raised his leg and stepped on the ghost baby's head. A burst of shrill screams from the baby rang out. The ghost baby's head was stepped on tightly, and the seal made in Lily's hand fell on the quilt. The 5 thunder curse struck, and the female ghost stagnated and then rushed forward. The female ghost, who was very attractive when she just appeared, was now grabbed by Lily's long hair that was transformed into yin qi, and she hit the female ghost's face and body with powerful fists, until she cried like a ghost. Seeing such an incident, everyone was in a daze. The principal took half a step back unconsciously, and the corners of Jian Yunyun's mouth began to twitch. The ghost baby who was stepped on the ground screamed, but could not struggle at all. "Come on," the female ghost was beaten for a while, and her body began to gradually become transparent. She finally couldn't help opening her mouth to beg for mercy. "Master Taoist, please forgive me, please forgive me. We, mother and son, have surrendered, surrendered." The fierce ghost just now had a sad face after being beaten. Lily let go of her hand, and the female ghost hurriedly hid aside. When she saw her son at Lily's feet, she looked like she wanted to come over but didn't dare. "If you had given up earlier, why would you have to suffer?" Lily had just hit the female ghost with Taoist power every time she hit her. At this time, the resentment on the female ghost's body had been dispelled a lot. Such a fierce ghost is originally based on resentment. In fact, now that most of her resentment has dissipated, her body has begun to look a little transparent. As soon as Lily loosened her feet, the ghost cried and crawled over to the female ghost. After a while, he crawled back into her belly again. The ghost's stomach disappeared and returned to its previous flat appearance. Her face did not dare to look like it was bruised and bruised anymore. Instead, it returned to its beautiful appearance when she was alive. She stared at Lily with sobs and sobs. "The Heavenly Master makes the decision. My real name is..." "Stop talking about this, I don't want to hear it, come in." Lily interrupted the female ghost's intention to express her grievances, reached out from her arms and took out the container that had been prepared to contain the female ghost, and shouted at the female ghost. After Yang Yang, the female ghost's expression froze, with a pitiful look on her face. Finally, after looking at Lily for a while, she stamped her feet, and her body turned into a puff of smoke and got into this inconspicuous little cloth bag. It's over like this." The principal couldn't believe it. The scene he just saw was over before he could be frightened to the point where his legs weakened. At this moment, the dark clouds that blocked the moon began to dissipate because there was no resentment from the female ghost. Suddenly, the entire gloomy teaching building revealed its true colors. The principal felt as if his feet were stepping on cotton, and he subconsciously asked, "Thank you so much, little Heavenly Master." "You're welcome. The ghost catching fee is 200,000 yuan. Do you need another peace charm? If you want it, just add another 50,000 yuan. If not, please return it to me. I will give you the bank card number before tomorrow." "That's it, mission sent." Now that it has already withered, in order to revive a sect, in addition to having real skills, you also need a lot of money. In the plot, Yesuanzi made a fortune by catching ghosts and making talismans. Lily took her first step at this moment. Lao Lu, the principal, looked touched at first, but after hearing the money, the corner of his mouth twitched fiercely. After hesitating for a long time, he gritted his teeth and agreed to the debt. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 420. As for the peace talisman, the principal had just seen Lily's abilities, and had seen Shang Yunyun hurt a female ghost with the talisman. Now he knew that there were real monsters, and this thing was really useful. 50,000 yuan was a lot of money. But it is not impossible for a principal to take it out, so the principal hesitated for a moment and gritted his teeth. "I want the peace charm. Master, please teach me the 5 thunder curse you just did." Shang Yunyun's eyes were shining now, and he pulled Lily and started to make a fuss. Lily ignored her and walked directly towards the elevator. Now that there are no more ghosts, the whole building has returned to normal. Naturally, a group of people no longer need to take the elevator. Lily took He King Han's car back to the mountain. He King Han answered the phone and went down the mountain again. After releasing the ghost mother and son in the mountain, the female ghost, who was still majestic before, now carefully shrank in a corner. Lily simply used the talisman paper she drew to set up another yin gathering formation, and drove the female ghost in, go in and recuperate. The female ghost was a little confused and didn't dare to disobey her, so she floated into the formation. Lily added a formation inside the formation outside the formation where the ghosts could not come out, and then ignored her. She had no class the next morning and stayed in the mountains for a long time. In the afternoon, He King Han actually drove up the mountain to pick her up. Lily had packed her things and was going to run down the mountain by herself. Although she had only entered this mission world for a few days, because she successfully mastered Xingqian's physical training and Tao Te Ching, which allowed her to maintain a good mood. When she saw He King Han, she couldn't help but laugh. "You are here to pick me up when you are so free." He King Han didn't speak, he just opened the car door for Lily silently. There weren't many things after going up the mountain. Lily came back last night with only 2 changes of clothes. Now throw things into the back seat. She sat in the passenger seat, and He King Han drove directly down the mountain. The two of them occasionally spoke a few words along the way. Most of the time, Lily closed her eyes and rested. He King Han didn't talk too much, and he still had his taciturn character. When he arrived at the school gate, He King Han stopped the car. Then he glanced at Lily. Did someone throw something up to the tall building last night? He also saw the long arrow made of talismans. Moreover, the female ghost who wanted to surrender at first suddenly became extremely fierce after receiving the arrow and began to attack people again. Lily had seen the female ghost when she went back last night. The arrow was no longer there, but it was just on her body. There is still the aura of the small yin gathering formation. Apart from Yesuanzi, Lily really can't think of anyone else who helped the female ghost at that time last night and could draw the yin gathering formation. Yesterday afternoon, I robbed Yesuanzi's business, and Long Lily and Yesuanzi himself have always been old enemies. It is not surprising how Yesuanzi took over the memory of the original owner and would play dirty tricks on himself in order to take the opportunity to get rid of her. Lily had never thought about letting Yesuanzi go, and Yesuanzi's move behind his back was also expected by her, so she was not angry. When He King Han said this, she pursed her lips. "I know it well. Do you need?" He King Han lowered his head and stared at Lily. Before he finished speaking, a voice suddenly came from behind the two of them, "Brother." They both turned their heads to look, and saw an off-road vehicle parked behind them. After the doors on both sides opened, a man and a woman got out. The man was wearing a camouflage uniform and hiking boots, while the other man was wearing gray clothes. Wearing casual clothes and carrying a small canvas bag, the girl with a somewhat cold expression who was staring at Lily with cold eyes was none other than Yesuanzi, who Lily just thought was the one who had done something wrong last night. After seeing Lily and the other two, the young man frowned and walked over first. He glanced at Lily impatiently, then took out a box of cigarettes from his arms, opened it and took one. In the hand, "Brother, you were late returning to the military camp yesterday. Dad asked you where you were." The He family started out with military power. At the beginning, the He family was one of the 3 marshals of the founding of the People's Republic of China. All their descendants were usually sent to the military when they reached their age. Although He King Han looked young, in fact, he had already finished military school. Now has already interned in the army and may take over the power of the He family in the future, so he actually doesn't have much free time every day. Since he suddenly became a disciple of Long Lily half a year ago, he actually appeared in front of Long Lily. There is also little time, but in the past 2 days, there has been more time. "Don't mind my business," He King Han said something after a while, and seeing the cigarette in his mouth, He King Han suddenly pulled it off for him, frowning and said, "Stop smoking." He Qingling twitched the corner of his mouth, glanced at Lily, and said nothing. Yesuanzi on the side looked at Lily several times, and suddenly looked a little wary. "You are quite capable. You didn't die last night." Junior sister Yes seems to want me to die. Lily knew that it must be Yesuanzi who made the little move last night. She didn't fall out at this time, but Yesuanzi couldn't wait to let her die. He made up his mind to come back with revenge, but Yesuanzi looked at her and snorted coldly, turned around and walked into the school first. Brother, I'll call you later. After He Qingling said this, he glanced at Lily, snorted coldly, and followed Yesuanzi in the direction he left with a look of disdain on his face. He Qinghan didn't even look at him out of the corner of his eye. He just looked at Lily seriously for a while, then said be careful before getting in the car and leaving. After finishing the afternoon class honestly, Lily quickly ran back to her rented house and drew a few holding charms. Among all the holding charms were the easiest to draw and had the highest success rate. Before it got dark, Lily drew 3 amulets. Yesuanzi in the plot has family and parents to support. Although at this time Lily suspected that Yesuanzi might not be himself, but an ancient monk who traveled through time, if she wanted to continue practicing in this era of lack of spiritual energy, she must have a lot of money to buy medicinal materials. She robbed Yesuanzi's first business. She would never be able to get the money at this time. Originally, Yesuanzi's she will definitely do the work. In the plot, Long Bei had been to the place where Yesuanzi worked. It was in a very well-known club in Beijing. She was working as a singer on stage there. When Bei took a taxi and came to this club, she was initially harassed. The security guard blocked the entrance to the club. Lily frowned, took out her mobile phone from her bag and called He Qinghan. She didn't know if it was He Qinghan who had the most contact with her recently after entering the mission. She notified He Qinghan as soon as she encountered such a thing. I don't know what He Qinghan did, but about 3 minutes later, the security guard let Lily go into the club with a respectful look. This club was magnificently decorated, but the lights were a little dim. Only the stage was illuminated, giving it a dreamy look. As expected, Yesuanzi was singing on the stage when Lily came. She was obviously not used to this. Dressed up with a look of disdain on his face, he held a microphone and just finished singing a song when someone in the audience started shouting, "Let's play a little enemy song." Yesuanzi on the stage immediately frowned, his eyes showed a bit of cold sharpness, and he said a little stiffly, "I can't sing Little Enemies." "Then sing a song and kiss my baby." There were obviously more people booing this time. Yesuanzi's cold appearance had obviously stirred up the evil roots deep in the hearts of some of the playboys. At this moment, everyone started shouting, and Yesuanzi's face became even more ugly. She put the microphone in her hand on the microphone stand, and her expression turned completely cold. "I can't sing either. I don't know anything. Come and have a drink with our brothers." "Are you ready?" Someone stood up. The manager who was in charge of watching the place saw that things were getting serious. He might have recognized it. Revealing his identity as this young man, he went up to the stage to say a few words to Yesuanzi. Lily hid aside and saw clearly that after the manager said he was willing to pay her 3 times the salary, Yesuanzi walked over with a cold face. While Lily smiled, she took out the simple slingshot she made from her bag and folded up the amulets. After 2 drinks, Yesuanzi obviously became a little dishonest in the group. His hand began to touch the back of her hand, and Yesuanzi actually stood up and slapped one of the young men in the face. The young man was probably from a good background. He was furious after being slapped. He raised his hand without thinking. Lily took a sip from the wine glass in front of her and saw the mark on Yesuanzi's hand. With a somewhat contemptuous sneer at the corner of her mouth. At this moment, Lily flicked the amulet towards her without thinking. Yesuanzi must have noticed the soft sound of whoosh. She subconsciously wanted to turn her head and look over, but the amulet fell straight onto her body and then disappeared into her body. The half-formed seal stopped immediately, and the smile on her face even stiffened, and the hand raised by the angry young man who had been slapped hit her face with a snap, hitting her hard. He turned his face to the side and made a poof sound in his mouth. "What the hell, you dare to hit me?" After scolding the young man, he still couldn't get over his anger. He pulled Yesuanzi's hair and slapped her in the face. He moved his lips to hers and bit her lips. Yesuanzi's eyes showed resentment, and he rolled his eyes. At this moment, he was probably looking for someone in the bar who had cheated on her. Lily knew what she was capable of, and the holding charm might take a long time for an outsider to fix. But for Yesuanzi, it might only take 7 or 8 minutes. She flicked the 2 remaining amulets towards Yesuanzi in succession, and then she paid for her drinks quietly. "Get out the bar." To be continued. P.S. The moral integrity I just picked up was shattered into pieces again. Second update. The third update should be on time, yes. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 421. Yesuanzi was scheduled to meet for more than 20 minutes. During these 20 minutes, she might be humiliated to some extent, but she would not suffer any real physical torture. This was just a small warning. The 2 factions were originally fighting. There can be healthy competition, but both the Yesuanzi in the plot and the real Yesuanzi at this moment always like to use dirty tricks, and now she has to taste the feeling of being shot in the back. Returning to the rented room, Lily quickly put the matter behind her. She had classes in the afternoon the next day. When Lily arrived at the school, as soon as she stepped into the school gate, she held the biting wind in one hand and walked toward the school. She waved it over, and a yin energy that seemed to be real was so strong that it made people want to vomit. There were ghosts appearing in broad daylight. Lily ducked sideways, and a few hairs tied into ponytails were cut off by the sword hand. Suddenly broke off and fell to the ground. When he looked closely, he saw what kind of ghost was there. In front of him stood Yesuanzi with a livid face. However, Yesuanzi missed the hit, and the blade between his fingers was very fast. Then he flexibly turned around and wiped it towards her neck. "Are you crazy?" Lily's face turned gloomy. Yesuanzi started to attack in front of so many people. Could it be that she really thought that she was an omnipotent god in this era? Yesuanzi pursed her lips tightly and said nothing. There was no trace of the slap she received yesterday on her face. Instead, she was horribly gloomy. "It was you last night. I underestimated you, a loser," she murmured softly. With unspeakable contempt and disgust on her face, she suddenly took back the hand held by Lily, and sneered twice. "We'll see." After saying this, Yesuanzi pulled at himself collar. He turned around and left. The 2 are called junior sisters, and they are about the same age. However, Yesuanzi dropped out of school for a year because of her family's poverty. She is 1 year younger than Lily. Today she came here specifically to wait for Lily. Now her purpose is, once after arriving, he declared a declaration of war and naturally turned around and left. At this time, she really had murderous intention towards Lily. Although she had done some small tricks several times before, Yesuanzi never took Lily into his eyes. She was originally a disciple of a powerful monk from the mission sect in the monastic world. Unexpectedly, she followed her master to conquer the 100 ghosts. In the process of becoming a king, he accidentally died in the hands of the Ghost King. Unexpectedly, his soul recognized the Ghost King by mistake. In the end, the Ghost King, who was almost subdued by her, spared her life, but instead resurrected her in the body of Yesuanzi, who has the same name as her in the 21st century. Although spiritual energy is thin in this century, Mission Taoism has also become a lot more lonely. There may be a chance to live again. Yesuanzi is actually very happy in his heart, now that he has taken over Yesuanzi's body. She also knew that Yesuanzi once had a rival, and now Yesuanzi was naturally ready to serve his parents for the original owner. And kill the idiot Long Lily, unify the mission sect, and restore the original prestige of mission. Unexpectedly, Long Lily, who had always been incompetent in Yesuanzi's original memory, seemed to have changed. Instead, he had the ability to trick her. One move. If it hadn't been for the Ghost King protecting her body last night and lifting the immobilizing spell 20 minutes later, she might have been insulted by several dandies by now. After losing his Yuanyin body, Yesuanzi thought of this. His face became more and more gloomy. When Lily saw Yesuanzi leaving, a very powerful cold air suddenly came out of her body. Thinking about the source of the abnormal yin air on Yesuanzi just now, she immediately frowned. She originally thought that Yesuanzi would use some means to harm her again after that day, but it was calm for several days in a row. Yesuanzi did not appear in front of her again, and she had never met Yesuanzi in school. Once, when Lily was about to take a taxi back to the mountains on a Friday night, Wang Xishan, who rarely took the initiative to call her, called Lily, "Are you free?" This eldest disciple was acquainted with Mayor Wang when Long Xianzhen was still alive. Long Xianzhen originally planned to accept Wang Xishan as his disciple, but he did not expect that she died early in the end, and Wang Xishan had no choice but to worship him. Although they were called master and apprentice, Wang Xishan was 2 or 3 years older than Long Lily. Normally, the Wang family would not take the initiative to come to her unless they contacted He King Han. Now Wang Xishan appeared. Lily raised her eyebrows and asked briefly, "Is something wrong?" The son of a certain provincial director was possessed by an evil spirit a few nights ago. Now he is shouting nonsense. He has called several Taoist priests but he has not dared to do anything. Do you want to go and have a look? This phone call from Wang Xishan is obviously impossible. It was for Lily's sake, and it should be for the Wang family. The 2 apprentices Long Lily accepted were both of this kind. Lily was ready to refuse, but after thinking about it, she suddenly said, "How much money are you going to give me?" Wang Xishan's sneer came from the other end of the phone. He said calmly, "Master, do you need money to do a favor for your disciple? When there is trouble, it is the master, but when there is nothing, these powerful children are all aloof." Lily hung up the phone without saying a word. Not long after, Wang Xishan called again, with a somewhat annoyed tone, "You must have real skills, 500,000, but a total of 6 people have had trouble." 6 people, 1,000,000 in total, and you have to promise me to build a Taoist temple on the hilltop where I live now. Lily said her request, and Wang Xishan hesitated for a while, as if it was like going to discuss with someone, and it took about half a quarter of an hour before I agreed. Lily was just about to take a taxi to Wang's house when a black off-road vehicle stopped next to her. After the window was lowered, He King Han's silent face appeared in front of Lily. "Get in the car." The 2 of them happened to meet each other here. Lily opened the car door and called Wang Xishan's phone number. He King Han frowned and glanced at her. "Is it so important to rebuild the Taoist temple?" "Very important. Apart from defeating Yesuanzi, Long Lily's only wish is this. She doesn't want Mission Taoism to become famous all over the world, but at least in a certain circle, she wants to make a name for herself. This time she has with the Tao Te Ching in her hand, God is helping her. If she can't complete such a task, she might as well die." He King Han's face showed something like a smile, but in the end he didn't speak again. Wang Xishan and his son Wang Xishan had been waiting for a long time. When Lily came over and saw that she was still with He King Han, the faces of both father and son showed surprise. Along the way, the 2 men tried their best to talk to He King Han, but this Lily was born taciturn and didn't seem to like to socialize with others. It didn't take long for the atmosphere in the car to become cold. When she arrived at the first home where evil spirits were trapped, Lily felt a gloomy air in the house as soon as she got out of the car. As we came in, the sound of opera singing could be heard in the room, and wild laughter could be heard in the next moment. The people waiting at the door all looked anxious and haggard. Lily was somewhat surprised to find that the young man who had been possessed this time was one of the young men who had teased Yesuanzi in a certain club before. However, In just a few days, this young man's eye sockets had sunken deeply, and his lips where the skin was dry and peeling, and an old ghost in costume and makeup was sitting on his body, staring at Lily fiercely. "You stinky bitch, mind your own business," this old ghost seemed to have grown up. I don't know why this young man provoked such a fierce thing. If it was just a few days ago, Lily would have had to spend a lot of effort to deal with him. But at this time, she took advantage of this time to draw a lot of talisman papers. At this time, she took out a piece and put it on the young man's face. A scream came from the young man's mouth, and the old ghost was immediately taken in the ghost-catching vessel. Ignoring the grateful expressions of the family, Lily urged He King Han to go to the next house. The person he saw at the second house was still the same person who had molested Yesuanzi that day. After that, Lily knew what was going on and followed this person. He is still a ghost demon who seems to have been practicing for nearly 100 years. In just a few days, most of this person's anger has been sucked away. Now his anger is like a gossamer. This ghost demon is very fierce. Lily painted it with blood. Only after the spell was used to subdue it, and the next few people became familiar faces, Lily began to have doubts about Yesuanzi. This man has a fierce temperament and will retaliate. Although these young people are lawless, Lily was only prepared to teach her a lesson that day and never really thought about making her lose her virginity. Even if she just suffered a loss, Lily thought it was okay to give her a beating. I understand, these dudes are not good people anyway, but it is too much to kill people at every turn. Moreover, Yesuanzi seems to have secrets that she doesn't know. It's not uncommon for ghosts to be killed unjustly in modern cities, but the ghosts she caught today are all things that have become climatic. Yesuanzi actually has such a powerful ghost, and she herself has not been harmed by the backlash. Thinking of the inexplicable solid yin qi that appeared on Yexian's body when he came to seek revenge on her that day in school, Lily became even more wary of Yesuanzi. After catching these pestering ghosts and checking the money and receiving it, Lily didn't plan to go back to the mountain for a week. With the money in hand, she didn't have to worry about food and accommodation. In addition to attending classes, Lily spent the rest of her time doing everything. She used it to practice the star physical training technique and Taoism. The star physical training technique is indeed a good thing. Even in modern times where spiritual energy is thin, once she starts the movements of the star physical training technique, there will still be a large amount of spiritual energy flowing in. As a result, her body was ready with half the effort when practicing Taoism. Even half a month of practicing Taoism was more effective than a year when she first learned the Tao Te Ching of Tiandi sect. Yesuanzi is not a good person. Lily originally thought that this mission would be very easy, but now she doesn't dare to be careless after knowing that Yesuanzi may have another adventure. Time is in the process of practicing Taoist mental skills every day. Slowly passed by, and after 2 months, Lily was able to use the Taoist skills in her body to use a few moves from the Tao Te Ching, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation.